Thanks. Please be seated. Order. Honourable members, the first item on the order paper is questions addressed to the Deputy President. The first question has been asked by the Honourable C.C. September. The Honourable, the President, the Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
You are not the Deputy President, Honourable Steenhuisen. I've just called the Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, may I address you in terms of Rule 63, the rule of anticipation?
Honourable Steenhuisen, just take your seat. Please proceed, Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker. Thank you. The proposed National Skills Development Strategy, which is referred to here and proposed as NSDP, is currently a matter that is being discussed at NADLEC. The implementation thereof is scheduled to happen on the 1st of April 2020, once the process of consultation has been concluded and the relevant legislative framework has been finalized. The proposed new NSDP focuses on occupations that support growth, encourage employment creation, and enable social development. This will allow for the delivery of a range of programs and will not be restricted to scarce skills to ensure that these programs reach a large number of people, which in the end will enable them to have access to employment and be able to embark on self-employment opportunities. This proposed plan is aligned with many others, the National Development Plan, the White Paper for Post-School Education and Training, and other key documents of government which have set out important strategies and priorities for development with an emphasis on inclusive growth as well as employment creation. One of the most critical mandates of the Department of Higher Education, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that the skills development systems and all supporting institutions are properly aligned to respond not only to national priorities, but to the wide range of needs inherent in the developmental state project that we want to see happening in our country. The proposed NSDP specifically emphasizes the need to address all these challenges that have emerged from the current strategy, including but not limited to the production of artisans as envisaged in the NDP, and the placement of learners and graduates in the workplace. The role of the National Skills Authority will be restructured according to this plan and refocused with its functions concentrated specifically on the monitoring and evaluation of our skills development system. Lessons that have been learned from current strategy include the need to strengthen governance. The proposed plan seeks to establish credible systems for skills planning as well. Finally, the success of this strategy, Madam Speaker, and all other programs aimed at building our human capital will be judged by the extent to which our young people, who are the key beneficiaries of this, will be able to gain the skills necessary to participate meaningfully in the labor market of our country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable September.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, having listened to the response that you gave to the question, Deputy President, should our resolve then also not be to, whilst negotiations are continuing at NEDLAC, to also ensure that firstly we have a skilled and capable workforce that shares in and contributes to the benefits of economic expansion, and also, very importantly, inclusive growth. But more importantly, secondly, Deputy President, can we ensure that we would know that the success of the plan depends, of course, on cooperation of all role players for the benefits of women, for the benefits of youth, for the benefits of unemployed, for the benefit of learners? And what is government doing to realize this? And how would government ensure that all of this can happen? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, it is quite clear that the issue of skills development in our country is probably the most important project our nation should be embarking on. It is only through a skilled workforce that will be able to restructure the economy of our country and to ensure that we do indeed create jobs and meaningful jobs that our people can get into. Right now, the the HRDC, which I chair, is focusing on that, but more importantly, the Department of Higher Education and Training also focuses on all this. And with the negotiations and the discussions that are taking place at the NEDLAC level, we are certain that those social partners within NEDLAC are the appropriate partners who should come up with innovative ideas and plans on how we can put our skills development process into a higher gear. Our young people are hungry for skills acquisition, and all we need to do is to open up all the doors, which to give them the opportunities to acquire those skills. And this we're seeking obviously to do through focus programs, through our TVET colleges and indeed our universities as well. But the TVET colleges are meant to be the focal areas where we want to absorb as many young people as we possibly can and skill them in real skills that are useful in the economy. And to this end, we're roping in as many companies as possible to cooperate with us at the TVET college level, either through adoption processes and also to curriculum development, so that as we develop these skills, the skills are well attuned to the world of work and to what the industry and companies also require. So I couldn't agree more with the member and honorable member and say that indeed skills development is the key area that we need to focus on as a nation and get all social partners in our country to participate in. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, skills development, as we've agreed, is a very important aspect of transformation in the country. One of the problems we seem to be experiencing is the tertiary institutions. There's no link between the needs, the skills needs of the country and the curriculum of the different tertiary institutions. Now, government provides NSFAS funding, provides bursaries. What is government willing to do to ensure that that funding that we provide in terms of NSFAS or bursaries is in line with the skills development needs of this country? And secondly, and very importantly, the challenges that we face in the TVET colleges, which is supposed to be providing the artisans and skills needed, the performance or the success rate at these TVET colleges are very limited. Could you please advise what additional measures government will take to resolve this matter? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Sheikh is absolutely right. There is a need for us to align what our institutions of higher learning are teaching with what the needs of the country are, and specifically what the needs of our economy are. And it is in this regard that we are encouraging these institutions to cooperate more at close range with industry players. And while we are encouraging industry players to interface with these institutions so that the curricula that are offered at institutions of higher learning are well aligned with what the industry needs. And this is beginning to take place in a number of cases. And this also touches on the second question that the Honorable Sheikh has raised about TVET colleges. As I said earlier in my answer, I said that we are encouraging TVET colleges to partner themselves with industry players, either close to where their institutions are located or to industry players that may well be located elsewhere, to bring them closer and to have a system of cooperation and collaboration which will lead to realignment of curricula, and also go beyond that and get young people to be placed in learnerships, in jobs, in those companies that may be operating in particular industries. Madam Speaker, we have found that when this happens, actually we do get a number of young people being offered not only learnerships, but real jobs when this type of cooperation happens. We've seen that happening in the Gauteng area as well as in other areas like KZN, and we want to encourage this more and more, because this is the way to go, to have a very good symbiotic relationship between industry and our institutions of higher learning, so that our education is not just theoretical, it must be practical and respond to the needs of the economy and the country. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Welcome, Sir 17. A developing country needs 6 skills in order for it to move forward. I'll enumerate a few. Infrastructure needs skills. Knowledge development and use need skills. Funds need skills to be developed and managed, and naturally occurring infrastructure. Skills is just one of those capitals, but this is very, very central. Now, schools are full, especially in the Eastern Cape, of school-going kids who reach up to matric without being able to read or write. This puts them on the back foot already. Now, my question to you is, how do you propose to circumvent the resultant inability of these students to be able, the resultant inability of them not being able to learn, or even to learn to unlearn those habits that are not productive and therefore are not able to contribute towards the economic development of the country? Just on the back foot of that also is the fact that over the medium term that we're looking at, the funding of TVET colleges is going to grow at a very, very slow pace compared with the other forms of education that the country, is offering. Now, this is a matter of concern. It means that for those people to be able to learn, they would depend on scholarships, and the like. So as government, how do you intend circumventing the fact that we need more skilled people when the education system is not being all that helpful, and especially from a funding perspective? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With regard to the challenges that our country continues to face at the school level, I'm pleased to say that the Department of Basic Education is well aware and alive to these challenges, and continues to take concerted efforts to address these very serious problems. The Minister of Basic Education continues to say the important task in the end is to revamp our education system to a point where we get young children at school level to be able to read and to write, and they have a number of projects and programs that are aimed at enhancing precisely this. And clearly, the legacy of our past tends to catch up with us as we move ahead, and it holds us back. But notwithstanding all that, there are a number of initiatives which the Department of Basic Education or the Ministry of Basic Education is embarking on, improving the whole process of learning and teaching. And where it is making traction, we're seeing phenomenal results. We're seeing how young people have taken up the task of learning, of reading, in quite an enthusiastic way. Clearly, the issue of funding is going to continue being a problem, particularly right now when the economy of our country is not growing as fast as we want it to grow. But our commitment to funding and supporting higher education, particularly at the TVET colleges one, is something that is firm and that we are determined to go ahead with. We will continue to fund those TVET colleges. Obviously, we would like to open as many as possible. That may not be possible. And this is where the partnership between the private sector and the public sector becomes important, because through this type of relationship, we'll be able to unlock resources, to unlock reservoirs of assistance that we can rely on to ensure that our education system produces the type of skills that we want it to produce. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Reverend Mishwe.
Thank you, Speaker. The ACDP welcomes the proposed new National Skills Development Strategy, which we hope will help address some of the many challenges facing poor and unemployed South Africans, such as accessing information about opportunities and available skills development programs. If I may, I would like to suggest that the Deputy President considers using his influence to ensure that when implementing agents of these programs disseminate information, that municipalities and constituency offices of members of parliament also become hubs where such information could be made available for community members. What I want to know from the Deputy President is whether or not the National Skills Development Strategy includes mentorship programs for the various skills being developed. Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the suggestion that we should utilize that as the implementing agents go about implementing this strategy, they should also utilize various offices, including offices of members of parliament. I find that to be a refreshing and welcome proposal, which we would like to take up with the ministry, or better still, with those who are going to be implementing this strategy. So I'd like to thank Reverend Mishwe for coming up with that idea, and I'm sure it is implementable. With regard to the issue of mentorship, mentorship clearly has to be part and parcel of this strategy. And we already see how mentorship pays dividends through the TVET college process that I was talking about. Because once we strike a partnership between, say, industry players and our TVET colleges, according to the various disciplines that are inherent in the TVET colleges, we often find that companies that participate are able to deploy people, some of them almost deployment on the permanent basis, and they are able to mentor young people in the various skills that they have chosen. So mentorship, particularly as we are dealing with a very terrible past of a past system that tended to dehumanize our people, we're finding that mentorship can help a great deal, and many who are participating in this type of process are finding it very worthwhile. And in that regard, I'd like to thank Reverend Mishwe again for raising this matter. Thank you.
We now come to question number 14, asked by the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable, the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, as I indicated in a previous reply in this very House, there is a section called Section 92(2) of the Constitution that says that members of cabinet, that is members of the executive, are accountable collectively as well as individually to Parliament, to this very Parliament, for the exercise of their powers and the performance of their functions. Now, the Constitution goes further and says that members of the National Executive must provide Parliament, which includes this National Assembly, with full and regular reports concerning matters under their control. The executive remains committed to ensuring that it accounts regularly and effectively to Parliament, that I can say without any equivocation. Cabinet receives regular report from the leader of government business, particularly when it comes to whether members of Parliament are executing their functions or not, when it comes to answering parliamentary questions. Each time the executive meets, the leader of government business presents a report on how each member of the executive is performing, and where we find that they are flagging in their performance, we raise it with them and encourage them to perform as is expected. So this matter I have dealt with quite extensively in this Parliament, in this National Assembly. And if there is a lack of clarity on this matter, the Constitution is a document that should be studied closely, and if it's not, it's a document that members can have for bedtime reading, and read it very carefully and understand exactly what it says. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
I mean, in the interest of the President having bedtime reading around the Constitution, I wanted to get some clarity from you, because it is correct that it is in the interest of accountability that members must come to this House to account. Now, we note that Deputy President Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, an ordinary citizen in South Africa, has been receiving state protection on the basis of a security threat assessment. Now, part of the culture that's developing is that even the President used a report which you mentioned, an intelligence report, to remove former finance minister. And worse, he's asking us to give him that report. Now, in the interest of accountability, I don't want the Minister of Police to come here and ask us to give him a security assessment for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So what I'm more interested in asking, Deputy President, is how are we going to ensure that, in fact, the Minister of Police comes to account here about that flagrant state abuse? And ultimately, how does he ensure that state money is not being spent on protecting the friends or family of the President when it comes to this VIP security? Thank you very much.
Point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Khadebe?
The Speaker, with due respect, the follow-up question is radically different from the original question. It's unfair to the Deputy President. Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President, would you like to forego this question on the basis of the point of order that has been raised, or would you like to entertain it anyway?
Point of order, sir. Point of order, sir.
Honorable Deputy President, I see you were on your feet already.
Point of order, sir.
No, Honorable Member. There was a point of order just now. I'm dealing with the Deputy President, Honorable Filtane. Can you just take your seat, please, and let's proceed?
So you'll give me the opportunity.
If you are on the list for follow-up question, I will give you.
No, I'm talking about the point of order.
No, Honorable Member, you don't raise a point of order on top of a point of order. Please take a seat, Honorable Filtane. Honorable Deputy President, please.
No, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I mean, in the light of the point of order that has been raised, all I wanted to add or say was that, I mean, in the interest of enhancing accountability and all that, I would advise the Honorable Member, Leader of the Opposition, to have these matters addressed at the relevant committee of this Assembly. And thereafter, it can also be raised here. So, and that is where the Minister of Police would be able to entertain and answer these questions. And I'm sure the Minister will not be saying that he should come up with an assessment report himself. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Now, Honorable Filtane, I will give you a chance to raise your point of order, but in actual fact, please, Honorable Members, can we allow a question session to stay that way? However, go ahead and raise your point of order.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. It has fallen off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, in February this year, the head of IPID, Robert McBride, reported to Parliament that members of the Hawks and SAPS were fighting and at times killing each other at OR Tambo Airport, fighting over drugs. He further said that the then Police Minister, Nathi Nhleko, was protecting these rogue police. What have you done as leader of government business to investigate those allegations and make the minister account for his role in the deterioration in the quality of work of the police?
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. That is a matter that clearly has to be investigated by the relevant entities of the police, and indeed also IPID itself. These are matters that, when properly and fully investigated, a report is then prepared and handed over to the relevant body. And in this case, if it's a matter as serious as this, it could end up with the minister or the president himself. So it's not a matter that a leader of government business would get involved in and conduct investigations, because the leader of government business does not even have the facilities to conduct such investigations. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. Sekela Mongameli, towards the end of his tenure as former police minister, Minister Nhleko precipitated a complete breakdown of his relationship with the IPID director, Robert McBride, refusing to meet with him and telling him to report to the Speaker instead of to him as the minister. Now, we observed in the Portfolio Committee on Police that Minister Nhleko would attend committee meetings with the acting police commissioner, Pahlane, but not with Mr. McBride, as part of the complete freeze-outs he imposed on this crucial department in his former portfolio. So, umbuzo wami uthi, what measures are in place and what can you do as the leader of government business to resolve conflicts like this between ministers and their senior officials in order to ensure the smooth running of government?
The Honorable Deputy President.
I'm able to say that this matter indeed did arise and we had to deal with it. And as leader of government business, we tried to get the various parties together and sought to ensure that there is peace between them so that they can continue executing their tasks. It was a rather difficult matter to deal with. Many efforts were made to address this matter. And this is the type of matter where we intervened without trying to put it on the front pages of newspapers. It is an ongoing process that we get involved in at the leader of government business level to try to smooth ways and paths and ways of working together amongst colleagues. So this matter was addressed, and as it has turned out, there's been a change of guard, and we're hoping that these types of matters will not arise on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, now that we know that the Minister of Police has been replaced with the new Minister of Police, is there a process that you may have undertaken to ensure there is some form of continuity from the former Minister Sleko to the new Minister Mbalula in order to fight crime in South Africa? Thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, we have, in the execution of our tasks, want to ensure that there is indeed continuity in the work that is done between the changes of leadership in any government entity, be it at ministerial level, director general level, and a whole number of others. And in this case, yes, there has been, and we are encouraged by the enthusiasm that is being demonstrated by the new minister in as far as fighting crime is concerned. And I would like to invite all of us to encourage him and to wish him well in the execution of his very difficult task. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now come to question number 15, asked by the Honorable Mtetwa to the Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Over the last 30 months, this program that we call Back to Basics program in local government has become well known and has become also a well-accepted transformative intervention, having been introduced by the former Minister of Cooperative Governance, Minister Pravin Gordhan. It has touched all municipalities and gained traction from metros to the smallest municipality in our country, and it is pleasing to note that even in the remotest areas of our country, this program has gained so much traction and is being talked about as the one program that is being utilized to revamp our municipalities. Even where there is a change of leadership, particularly after the August elections last year, we are finding that even the change of leadership parties that have come in have embraced this program and are implementing it. And multidisciplinary interdepartmental Back to Basics task teams have done a lot of work in most municipalities to develop municipal action plans, and that is very pleasing. Now, some of the indicators of success in the implementation of the first phase of this plan are, for example, that 92% of reporting municipalities had complaint management systems in place by the end of 2015-2016. Now, this was against the backdrop of very little compliance or adherence to municipal reporting systems. It shows that there is a great improvement. A number of water service interruptions nationally decreased by more than half, and that is also a good indicator of how this Back to Basics plan is working well. However, there are still some challenges in a number of municipalities. Although there are fewer water disruptions, there are still problems with the state of water infrastructure in many municipalities, to the extent that around 10% of municipal water schemes can be described right now as being dysfunctional. These problems include poor management, lack of effective maintenance, and they also unfortunately involve things like vandalism and theft. Some municipalities have had difficulty in paying their ESCOM bills, and the provision of in areas of refuse removal has remained a challenge. But the first phase of Back to Basics focused on laying the foundation for a developmental local government by doing that just basic things. Building on this foundation and all the lessons that we have learned, the second phase, Madam Speaker, will focus on ways in which municipal programs can become instruments of social, of economic transformation to build more inclusive local community economies. There will be greater focus on issues such as spatial planning, local economic development, and opportunities to improve the financial health of municipalities. All in all, Madam Speaker, this has been one of the more successful programs that government has implemented, particularly at the level where our people live. And as this plan is implemented going forward, I'm sure that we are going to see a totally transformed municipal government system in our country, the type that we've always hoped that we would have. Thank you.
The Honorable Mtetwa.
Thank you, Deputy President, for giving us this answer. But in your summit, did you also discuss the issue of those provinces that are still lagging behind in terms of the implementation of this program?
Honorable Deputy President.
Yes, Madam Speaker. At the summit that was held recently, I would say that the majority of municipalities were represented, and indeed all provinces also participated, and we also discussed areas in our country where there is still a lack of proper implementation of the Back to Basics program, and we also came up with plans and strategies of how we can support those municipalities where there is still, they still have challenges. So this was discussed, and beyond that summit, we are expecting that there will be greater and greater adherence to the basic Back to Basics program, and that our municipality system will be a lot better than it was a few years ago. And indeed, the signs are already there. People who participate in the municipal system are truly enthusiastic, and they need to be encouraged to continue with the good work that they are performing. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, in the spirit of nation building, we must admit that we have the masses of our people that do not have access to water, roads, sanitation, houses, etc. And that's why most of them are very apathetic, because they don't receive these services or as speedily as it was announced. Hopefully 23 years into democracy, we should move away from saying, no, we're still laying the foundations, and try to hasten service delivery. Now, there are issues, Honorable Deputy President, that are undermining all this, the Back to Basic program, as we move to the third phase of it. One is the question of non-compliance with no consequence management. No punishment, no punitive measures taken are those who are involved in corruption, undermining the legal prescripts that are there. We find that nothing is done. Secondly, the whole question of cadre deployment, it's still really plaguing our municipalities in particular. And I must say, Deputy President, that we do have some sizable pool of skills, although we still need some scarce skills, especially within municipalities. Let me cite one example, Deputy President. Just before we went for oversight, just by the side of our parliament, by the gate, there were about 50 young people with degrees, B degrees, honors degrees, and master's degrees. And some of these, when you move nearer to them, they had some scarce skills. Some of them had engineering degrees, but they would tell you for 5 years of being unemployed. This is the issue that we're facing. What is it that can be done to address these matters that I've referred to Honorable Deputy President. Thank you very much.
Before I call on the Deputy President to respond, can I discourage making of examples? Because while you are making the example, you tell a story instead of asking a question. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to tell a story as well.
You have the right to tell a story because you are answering. I'd like members of parliament to ask questions.
Yes. Now, Madam Speaker, in answering Honorable Member Kobisa's question, because he started outlining some of the challenges that are faced by our municipalities, issues such as water, roads, and sanitation. I happened to be in the Marikana municipality a few days ago, and I got to fully realize the type of challenges that some of these municipalities face. Marikana municipality, particularly in Grahamstown, has a 200-year-old infrastructure. 200 years infrastructure that they now have to deal with in terms of maintaining it, revamping it, and making sure that the 82,000 people who live in that municipality have the best of service delivery. Now, those are the challenges that they face, and they have to address them, particularly when it comes to a very, very small budget or revenue stream that they get from the residents of the town. They have to find ways of repairing the infrastructure and maintaining it that they have. In relation to the skills, particularly the young people who have skills, a number of these municipalities need highly skilled people, and those highly skilled people, Honorable Kobisa is right, can be found in our country, and many of our young people have qualified extremely well in some of those scarce skills. And our task is to go out there and find them. And we're encouraging our municipalities to go out and find these young people, and not just to deploy the usual people that they often have around them. Because those skills are there throughout the length and the breadth of our country. They are in the form of highly trained financial people, highly trained engineers, and we're encouraging them to advertise widely and to go and find them and employ these young people to make a contribution in the municipalities that they run. Thank you.
The Honorable Filtane. Very energetic today, Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Chair. I will not give an example. I will lay the evidence. In the context of corruption, my own municipality, Ngoma, Parawe, refuse bags being sold for 182 rands a piece. That's evidence, not just an example. So where one of the fundamentals is obviously not in place. In other words, of the 6 capitals, there are funds going into the wrong pockets. I'm aware of the fact that the hawks are on it. That's why I said, it's evidence. Now, the other fundamental which is not in place and therefore an inhibiting factor in the whole program of going back to basics is the absence of land. 2013, an act was passed, Pluma, but now it's not effectively being implemented for 2 reasons. The traditional leaderships are up in arms against it, so many of them, and to make matters worse, this now has been handed over to the presidency. How do municipalities do any function if they have got no land that they can plan the use of? Your answer will be highly appreciated by South Africa.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The issue of land, particularly land for municipalities, is a highly contentious issue, because as our towns grow, as our cities grow, scarcity of land becomes a huge challenge, where people can have houses built for them, or where they may well want to build houses themselves. And the issue of Spluma that the honorable member has raised is a matter that is being discussed currently. yes, there are a number of views and sometimes differing views, but I'm confident that we are going to be able to find answers even around this very contentious issue of implementation of SPLOMA and the issue of land as a whole. And I would like to say that let's give it time, and the process is underway of discussions, of trying to find solutions to precisely this question. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Cebe Kulu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, in some way, the continued slide of the South African economy and pressure on local government can be attributed to persistent and significant infrastructure constraints, not only affecting business, but also well-being of thousands of people who migrate to urban areas every month for a better life and basic services. How will the Back to Basics program assist in bringing an end to disparities between rural and urban populations to ensure infrastructure development in rural areas? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
The Back to Basics program is precisely focusing on this as one of its key pillars of prioritizing the revamping of our municipalities. The government is committed to ensuring that the disparities between rural and urban are addressed as a matter of policy and government action. And we want, as much as possible, to continue promoting development in the rural areas, because a number of our people live in those areas, communities live there, and they were hugely neglected under the apartheid rule. Not that much else was done in the urban areas. So the government is addressing both. And we're also focusing on how we can generate economic growth also in the rural areas, so that we find ways of attracting investors to get closer to the rural areas and generate economic activity. And this clearly can be done through a variety of ways such as agro-processing, which we are focusing on, and a whole number of other activities like the agri-parks that we have embarked on. And through this, we're hoping that we will be able to create a community of progress and success, particularly at the economic level. So this is a matter that we are very, very keen to continue focusing on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now come to question number 16, asked by the Honorable Soledi. And I would like to call upon the Deputy President to answer.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. South Africa is, much as we may be going through a number of challenges, and where many people believe that we've got serious challenges and problems, particularly at the economic level, it could also be at the political level, but our country, what remains and what needs to be said is that our country is far more stable and far more prosperous, and in many important respects, it's become a relatively more equal society than it has been for the past 2 decades. We emerged from a divided past to adopt a constitution that is admired all over the world, and this constitution has formed the bedrock of a new and better society for South Africa. We have established democratic institutions that are stable and robust, and we should be proud that we've got so many democratic institutions, some of which are independent, and these are democratic institutions that we should defend, promote, and make sure that they continue existing and have integrity. In addition to Chapter 9 institutions established to support constitutional democracy, there are thriving civil society organizations that work to advance the values of our Constitution, that are made up of a wide variety of our people in their diverse nature. We have regular elections for all spheres of government, which have consistently seen higher voter turnout and have resulted in several instances in the smooth transfer of power at all levels. We have achieved and maintained macroeconomic stability and have managed our public resources prudently, continuously, sustainably, and progressively. We have a stable, effectively regulated, and adequately capitalized financial sector and a diversified economy. South Africans are very active in challenging the state and indeed in challenging the private sector to give effect to the socio-economic rights that are enshrined and embodied in our Constitution. The South African economy has expanded significantly since 1994. It is now around 85% bigger in real terms than it was in 1994. Real per capita GDP is about a third higher than it was in 1994. About 8 million more South Africans are in employment, more than we had in 1994. In other words, we have created, since 1994, 8 million and more jobs. The number of Africans and women participating in the labor market have more than doubled. The growth of the middle class, the black middle class, has been accompanied by a significant drop in both absolute and relative poverty. Now, you may think that I'm just rattling statistics. Now, I will invite you to go and read the publication that was put out by the South African Institute of Race Relations, who for decades and decades have been analyzing and monitoring the progress of our country and our nation economically, socially, and politically. And they came out with a report that confirms all this, where they said, truth be told, we have made progress in the past 23 years. Whether people like it or not, that is the reality of our situation. Now, some people may not like the fact that we've made this progress. Some people may feel that, no, it is not sufficient progress. And let me hasten to add, we will all agree in saying that it is not sufficient. And our people also agree that much as we have made progress, it isn't sufficient. We want more progress because as South Africans, we expect the best. We expect nothing but the best, and I would agree with that. And even the government acknowledges that despite the various challenges that we have, we've made progress, but we still need to do much more. Now, South Africa is a more prosperous society. The benefits of economic growth have reached some, but have not reached all. We have not grown enough and created sufficient jobs. That we must admit. And our task now is to create more jobs, to grow the economy more, to ensure that the new entrants in the labor market, particularly young people, do find space in the economy. There has been progress in making the economy more representative, but that too is not enough. So what we're really looking at is that the glass is half full. It's not half empty. And our job is to make sure that we fill this glass and make it more full so that all our people can benefit. And if one can put it a different way, can reap the economic dividend of the democracy that we won in 1994. So we have made progress. Much more still needs to be done. And this government is determined to make sure that we do indeed make progress in a variety of ways so that we can continue building this nation to deliver the best of what South Africa can give to all its citizens. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Sorelli.
E re ke lebohe motsamaisi wa dipuisano ka motsotso e ko fumaneng. Ke lebohe le tlhakisetso eo motlatsa mopresidente a re nehang yona e totobetseng le diphephetso kaofela tseo Afrika Borwa e nang le tsona moruong wa naha. Deputy President, the majority of our people, yes, they do agree that we have traveled a remarkable journey as the nation during the past 23 years from an apartheid state to a constitutional democracy. This includes the fact that a general consensus has been reached on the economic vision of our country with the adoption, implementation, and funding of the National Developmental Plan. Deputy President, what do government envisage will be the impact of the recent downgrades by the rating agencies on the implementation of our economic strategy going forward? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The downgrading by 2 rating agencies is obviously going to have a negative impact on our country and on our economy. And this clearly is a matter that we should not take lightly, because once you are downgraded, you are basically having to dig your way out of a hole. You basically are in a situation where your debt is going to be more expensive, where you are going to start struggling a little bit more to raise debt, where debt providers are not going to be too enthusiastic to give you or provide you with debt easily, and when they do, they will be asking you for an arm and a leg. So your interest rate payment is going to go up. Now this becomes even more so of a challenge for us because our economy is not growing at the levels that are going to make it a lot easier for us to get out of this situation. But notwithstanding all that, the government, and may I add, together with our private sector partners and our labor partners, are determined to continue cooperating to make sure that the downgrading is not a long-ended type of process, that we should find ways of immediately getting out of this downgrading scenario that we are in now. And in doing so, we should begin doing things correctly. We should address some of the issues that the debt providers have raised, and in doing so, we should therefore cooperate more vigorously. And this is already underway. The business community as well as labor and communities are already meeting. We've set up a task team that is going to be looking at the implications of the downgrading, and the Minister of Finance is actively involved in his discussions and collaboration with them, and indeed the economic cluster departments or ministries are also going to continue doing that. So we basically saying that all of us must look at this as a common problem. It's not a problem of the Minister of Finance alone, or a problem of one person alone in government. It is a common problem which all of us must address. What it also requires is that all South Africans, through their various formations, must realize that we're facing a real challenge and a real problem. And we need to have the level of decorum, of talking positively about our country, so that we can get out of this hole. What matters now is that we should dig our way out of the hole to come back onto ground and make sure that we never get into a downgraded hole once again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, despite the self-praises, Deputy President, South Africa is struggling to achieve a stable, equal and prosperous society. And part of the vivid reflections of such was the ANC government's killing of workers in Marikana. We heard that you have apologized somewhere in Rhodes. Why are you apologizing?
Point of order,
and who are you
Chairperson.
apologizing to?
Point of order,
And why are you not going
Order,
to apologize
Honorable Member, there's a point
in
of order.
Marikana so that the people that have been affected are the ones who receive
Honorable
the apology? Maybe
Shivambu,
we
can you
look
take
into
your
it as
seat?
well.
There's a point of order. Where's the point of order? Honorable
The member
Kabashe.
is referring to the ANC killing Marikana people is out of order, Chair, and he should withdraw that. Thank you.
Honorable Shibambu. Honorable Shibambu, in fact, the issue of you saying the way you are saying it is unparliamentary. The issue of Marikana, that's for a start. Secondly, it's a second totally different matter from the question that has been posed, on the basis of which you must ask a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
No, Honorable Steenhuisen.
Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to take a point of order in terms of the rules of the National Assembly, if I may.
Honorable Steenhuisen, I'd like to finish with Honorable Shibambu.
But
please.
Madam Speaker, you've given a ruling. I'd like to take a point of order, if I may.
I'd like to finish with Honorable Shibambu, Honorable Steenhuisen.
But Madam Speaker, it's germane to the question that you've just raised.
Honorable Steenhuisen, please give me a chance to finish with Honorable...
Will you recognize me when you finish with Honorable
Let
Shibambu?
me finish with Honorable Shibambu. Honorable Shibambu, I want to go back actually myself to re-look at what you said.
Okay.
I would like
That's
to
fine.
go
Yeah,
back.
but just as a quick reminder, Speaker, the Western Cape High Court has actually legitimated a phrase that says that the ANC government killed workers in Marikana. It was a long court case which Parliament ultimately lost, and it's now judgment which we have not yet appealed. The question is within context because we're speaking about South Africa's prosperity, stability, which might undermine development if it is not properly addressed. And we're pointing to an issue that is relevant now, that the Deputy President has apologized on the Marikana ANC government's killing of workers. What is he apologizing for, and why is he not apologizing to the relevant people in Marikana? It's linked to that. At least allow him to answer the question, and then we'll take it from there.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Let me say, when I addressed the students at Rhodes, one of the young people who asked that question later came to me and said, Deputy President, I asked you that question because I wanted to understand precisely what your conscience was telling you. And he said, before I come to the question that you've raised, Honorable Shibambu, he said, after my answer, he said, thank you very much. You have clarified this matter to me because I am the one who asked this. I now know precisely what you did and how it all evolved. And I thanked him. And he said, I'm sorry if you found it embarrassing. And I said, no, I didn't find it embarrassing because as a public person or as a leader, I know I have to be accountable for what I do and what I say. And you as a student, a citizen of this country, was asking me to account for what I said and what I did. What did I apologize for? I apologize, Honorable Shibambu, for the language that I used. I did say I did use inappropriate or unfortunate language, as expressed, yes, in the emails, but I also said what I was dealing with, the intervention I was seeking to make, was to try and stop further killings from happening. And for me, this was sparked off. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Let's allow Honorable Deputy President to finish.
And this, for me, was sparked off by the killing of the 10 people who had died earlier. And the killing of those people had happened in the most gruesome manner. And some of those people were police. The majority of them were mine workers. And I explained at that meeting that I had served mine workers for 9 years. The better part of my growing up years, I had committed to working for mine workers. I'd never been a mine worker myself. I was asked to go and help form a union together with other people, and I threw myself at this task. And I said, it could never be that I would want to have mine workers killed, or anybody for that matter, in the way that it all happened. So, Honorable Shibambo, that is what I apologize for. Beyond that, I also said, as a leader, I take counsel from what other leaders advise. And Mama Winnie Mandela did raise the matter with me, and she raised it publicly. She said, I want to take you to Marikana, and that was her initiative. And I said, I am willing to take counsel from Mama Winnie, and yes, accompanying her, and she will lead me. In this process, she will advise, she will give guidance, and she will lead me. Yes, to go and do what? I'm prepared to go and meet the widows of those workers who were killed and the widows of the 44 people who were killed. Now, Honorable Shibambu, as soon as I made that statement in the Eastern Cape, a number of reverends approached me for a private meeting, and they said, Honorable Deputy President, some of us come from the areas where many of those workers come from. We want to go with you, yes, to Marikana, with prayer, with understanding and all that, and we will want to walk this journey with you because we want you to do this right. So Honorable Shibambu, it's a matter of just saying when it is going to happen. As a leader, I'm prepared to be accountable, and I'm prepared to confront any situation where accountability is required. Thank you very much.
Honorable Carter. Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, following the irrational decision of Mr. Zuma to remove the then Minister Nene as Minister of Finance, considerable progress was made by government, business and labour with Minister Gordon to limit the damage caused. Subsequently, Mr. Zuma acted irrationally once again by summarily firing Minister Gordon in bizarre and seemingly nefarious circumstances, plunging us once again into a manufactured socio-economic and political crisis. You, Deputy President, have been quoted as stating that Mr. Zuma fired Minister Gordon, and I quote, based on an intelligence report that I believe had unsubstantiated allegations. My question is, does this so-called intelligence report actually exist? Did Mr. Zuma proffer this report as part of a reasoning for Minister Gordon's removal? And are you aware from where this report originated, and do you have a copy? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, I always try not to seem like I'm avoiding answering questions or ducking and diving. This question is already a matter of legal challenge and legal processes, and I would like, Madam Speaker, to not answer this question at this stage because there are legal papers that are being filed, and this matter is under consideration right now. And at a later stage, I would be, quite happy to deal with this matter. But right now, there's a legal case on this matter, and I prefer that I should leave it at that.
I think it is quite reasonable. Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much. Honorable Deputy President, yes, we agree with you that there's been considerable progress in the last 23 years or so. But however, one area where there's significant progress is in the field of corruption. Now, the Center for Violence and Reconciliation conducted some studies where they found that people in underdeveloped areas are angered by corruption. A case in point is what happened in Lady Brand, 131 million. The research further showed that the ruling party and the government are protective of comrades involved in corruption. I would like to know what is your assertion on this researched view that government is not doing enough to prevent corruption in our country and is becoming a cancer in our society.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think all of us know and are aware of the fact that corruption is a major challenge in our country.
Order, honorable members.
We are all aware that corruption is a major challenge, and indeed, our people abhor corruption. They hate corruption because corruption robs them of the service delivery that they deserve and all the good things that government should be doing for them. And one time I was talking about the houses that we have built. Someone who is in the building industry said to me, Deputy President, you say we built 4.3 million houses. We could have built double that if it was not for rife corruption. So it is a reality. Whether we want to talk about it or not, it is the reality that we confront and face, and ordinary people on the ground talk about it, and even if we may not want to talk about it. But the good thing in our country is that it is ventilated publicly by the free press that we have, and we should pay heed to our people who continue to raise this matter, because it is when that happens that we will be able to address the issue of corruption. Now, clearly, corruption is so rife and it's all over, it needs to be rooted out. It needs to be rooted out, roots and all, and we need to be focused on rooting out corruption. At government level, I happen to know that, various levels of government, a lot is being done to root out corruption. A number of people who are found with their hands in the cookie jar are being dealt with, either dismissed or arrested. And clearly, this is the task that must continue. And with corruption, you can never really say you've solved it all. You need to continue on an ongoing basis. But it is our determination, our focus on rooting out corruption that is going to be something that our people will give recognition to. If they think that we are doing nothing to root out corruption, their complaints will continue. So ours is to redouble our resolve to make sure that we do indeed not only talk about it, but we should be seen to be rooting out corruption. And that is the only thing that will satisfy the millions of our people. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, we now come to question number 17, asked by the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable, the Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, the government has no plans currently to introduce electoral reform to include a constituency-based system. As I think I indicated in my reply to this House on the 2nd of November 2016, the current electoral system has played an important role in ensuring that Parliament is not only representative,
Go ahead.
Deputy Speaker. As I indicated in November, I said that the current electoral system has played an important role to make sure that our Parliament is not only representative, but is also inclusive, but also does something that is very important to promote social cohesion. It ensures that all votes are equal, that every vote counts, and that the allocation of seats in the National Assembly reflects the diversity and the wishes of the South African people as a whole. It is good and correct that as Parliament and as a country, we reflect on the relative strengths and shortcomings of various electoral systems. I think we should not dismiss this debate. It is an important debate. We should have this debate and debate it fully and thoroughly. And then if we agree that this is the way to go, then we should do so. And in doing so, we should not just, be relying on, cliches and think that a constituency-based system necessarily in itself guarantees greater accountability of public representatives to the public. We should not be beguiled to think that that is the only way in which you can have accountability to our people. Much depends on the design of the electoral system, whether it's purely constituency-based or whether it's a combination of a PR and a constituency system. And I think this is what the late Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert did propose, that have a measure of both. Much depends on the size of constituencies, on the design of the electoral system, on the balance between individual and collective accountability. Most importantly, in engaging in this discussion, we need to ensure that we do not abandon what I would regard as an electoral system that has served our country very well. The current system has served this country very well. It has promoted inclusivity. Even political formations of parties that would never have been represented in this parliament if we had used a constituency-based system are represented, enhancing the voice of our people to be heard in this very parliament. We need to remember that we have had 5 national and provincial elections and 5 local government elections in which South Africans have held their public representatives to account. And that in itself is a form of accountability. The success of these elections should not, however, prevent us from continuing to look at the system that could best serve the purposes that we have in mind. So we should not just dismiss the system we have now. Let us come up with compelling views and ideas of why we should change the current system that we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Deputy President, it's me, the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Deputy President. And I want to agree with you. The current system that we've got in the moment has had its advantages, and there's no debate about the fact that it has also had its own shortcomings. And I support your view on the Van Zyl Slabbert report, because I think a mixed system would be quite helpful. Because the big advantage that we must get to is to have a discussion about how do we effect accountability. Because in the current system, we've seen time and time and again, members come to their house and when asked to do the right thing about holding someone accountable and in fact voting with their conscience, members come here and they vote according to party lines. We've seen this in the report around Nkandla. We've seen this in other motions of no confidence. So the question that I want to put before you is that, considering the fact that the Constitutional Court ruled that the President had violated his oath of office, would it not be incumbent on this Parliament to in fact vote with their conscience and represent the constituency they represent in South Africa? So I want to understand, Deputy President, would you agree with me that in the interest of the current electoral system and noting the Constitutional Court rulings and the process there, can we encourage members to come on the motion of no confidence and vote with their conscience and protect South Africans from corruption, which you spoke about earlier? And will you join in voting with your conscience so that we rid this issue of corruption at the top? Start there. Thank you very much.
Deputy President.
Yeah. Deputy Speaker, it's, with a matter like this, it's quite easy to play to the gallery. And I think we should enter this debate in a very sober manner, because we are all here on the basis of political party mandates. That's what brought us, all of us here. There's not a single person who came here, from the president right down to the last member of parliament, came here on the basis of a constituency-based system. And in fact, it gets worse. It gets worse because this party system plays itself in particular ways. Some parties even have in their constitutions that you may not violate your party position. And I think the Democratic Party has such a constitution where it is said that once the party line is determined, you may not differ from that party line. So that is why I say, let us be very careful and not play to the gallery. Because right now we have objectively and subjectively a particular parliamentary or electoral system that has brought all of us here. And it's all very easy to say, no, vote your conscience, and maybe what they mean is vote your party conscience. Because that's precisely what some parties have in their constitutions. Now when you combine individual conscience, party conscience, I don't know which one is best. But the reality of the matter is that let us leave the issue that is on the table now, the vote of no confidence, and not try and make it toxic by talking about the electoral system in a wishy-washy manner. What I think we should do is to say, we have a particular electoral system which has given rise to that and that and that problem. Let us have a discussion and a debate and resolve that. Once we have resolved that, we're then able to say, do we amend the Constitution or the electoral law so that as we move forward, we are clear. And then at that stage, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, you'll then be able to pontificate and stand on a platform and play to the gallery and say, this is what should be done, this is what should be done, this conscience that, this consciousness that, and so forth. That is what I believe will be most helpful. Otherwise, we're just talking to the gallery. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Slope.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, in the spirit of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, are you saying that ANC members of Parliament have forfeited their rights as public representatives? And also, the former Deputy President, which is Montlante and Thabo Mbeki, have also made a call to the members of Parliament to vote on behalf of people of South Africa to protect this country, because this country is going down to the drain. Are you going to support that view in the vote of no confidence of Zuma, or you are going just to close your eyes and ears and allow this country to go down to the drain, to corruption route? Thank you.
Deputy President.
I think Honorable Member and myself will agree on one thing, that we do not want this country to go down the drain. Once the country goes down the drain, you will not even find it. It will be flushed away through the sanitation system, the sewer system, and I don't think that's where we want to find our country. So obviously, we're facing great challenges. We're facing enormous challenges as a country, but we need to have cool heads. We need to be sober and address these problems in a rational way. And the rational way is not thinking that our country should go down the drain. Yes, you've referred to former presidents of this country who have taken certain positions, and those positions, I haven't had a discussion with them. Those positions obviously are motivated by the thoughts and the views that they have, and I think here we are also motivated by the thoughts and the views that we have. My answer goes back to the first answer I gave to Honorable Maimani, and this is not trying to run away from any problem or challenge. We have a party system, and the party system dictates that we should, exercise our responsibilities in particular ways. And it gets worse, as I said, other parties, in a very dictatorial way, in their constitutions, tell their members what to do and what not to do. Thank you very much.
Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, the Deputy President. When one takes note of Dr. Van Zyl-Slabbert Commission, this commission was instituted by the then Minister of Home Affairs, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. It had high components of social cohesion. It also needed to look into the electoral system with a view to recommend some of the reforms that would include A, a PR system and a constituency-based electoral model that will enhance democracy. B, to ensure greater accountability of public representatives to the electorate. C, minimize power of political parties over their public representatives. I would just like to find out from our Deputy President, at which point is the current electoral system addressing areas of A, B, C? And has there been any other commissions, apart from Dr. Van Zyl-Slabbert commissions, which one can benchmark where we would be going as a country? Thank you.
Deputy President.
There has been another entity that looked at more or less the same thing that I think late Dr. Van Zyl-Slabbert looked at. It just escapes my mind at the moment. So let me say, there have been quite a number of iterations where, as South Africans, in whatever form or shape, we are beginning to look at and debate the issue of our electoral system. And that in itself is a good thing. We need to continue doing so. The A, B, C provisions or conditions that Dr. Van Zyl-Slabbert looked at, I believe are currently addressed. They may not be addressed as directly as he would have envisaged through a constituency-based system, but in the end, the issue of C, minimizing the political power, I think it is. We are a parliament, we are a multi-party parliament that is composed of various political parties, and through practice, we've been able to demonstrate that even a majority party can have its own wishes and intents tempered by the participation of other parties, either through discussions, taking on board the suggestions that they make, and recognizing that all of us as leaders who are here, we've got new ideas, and nobody has a monopoly on intelligence or truth. So that in itself, putting all of us here in this house, begins to minimize the domineering power of one party over all other parties, because we exchange views and we interact at a close range. The other issue, of course, is accountability. I think through this house, what has happened in this house, and maybe at the end of the year we should do an assessment of how we have made this house much more accountable, or better still, the executive much more accountable. And I believe that as a member of the executive, I'm accountable to this parliament. And indeed, as the executive, we are accountable to this parliament. So accountability is enhanced, and representativity is to be found here in this parliament. So I think what late Dr. Van Zyl-Slabbert envisaged can be found in the current system, but clearly there could be room for enhancement, that we could add bells and whistles to the system that we have to make it much more robust, much more credible, and much more legitimate. But I believe we've got a very legitimate parliament as it is now that is accountable to our people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Bongo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Ngiyabonga kakhulu Sekela Mongameli ngokuphendula kahle kangaka lembuzo lo esibukene nawo. Honorable Deputy President, This issue of voting with conscience, I don't know why is it only applying to members of the ANC. And I also don't know why members of the opposition think that
Order, members.
voting with conscience, it means you must vote with the DA. I think it is highly a misnomer, Honorable Deputy President. But arising, Honorable Deputy President, from the Van Zyl-Slabbert Commission, there is a narrative that presupposes that the current electoral system aggregates the political influence over the influence of the people of this country. I want you to share with the experience that we have, having drafted the Constitution yourself, to share with the people of this country some of the successes of the electoral system itself, but also from where I'm sitting, I think this system.
Honorable member, your time has expired. Deputy President, you were asked to share. The question is clear.
Okay. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I think the current system that we have, as I've been saying, is a functioning system. It enhances democracy. And in here, we see democracy at work. And we see accountability at work as well. And if people were hankering for a more constituency-based system, that in itself is not a bad idea to have. It should be discussed and debated. And maybe we also need to look at how various parties deal with the architecture of how they function in their own parties. Because from the ANC side where I come from, all these members who are here are linked to constituencies. Each one of us have a constituency that we are linked to, that we do work in. And Parliament also funds the work that we do in those constituencies. And that in itself enhances democracy. And in many ways, this is what we had envisaged, that much as we have a party-based system, we are only as good in what we do as we represent the aspirations of our people. And representing the aspirations of our people mean and must mean that we must be continuously linked to our people. We must remain connected to our people so that there is no political or social distance between us and the people that we represent, because we are here to represent them. And if we don't, our people will, in 5 years' time, declare their own wishes. They will, as we go back to an election process, they will demonstrate whether they appreciate what we have been doing or what we have not been doing. So there are good checks and balances for the current system. So, but we must debate this matter and see what system, either a combination of one and the other, could best work for South Africa. But right now, this system is not broken. It works. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to question 18, asked by Honorable Mende to the Deputy President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, as the South African National AIDS Council, that is SANEC, we launched the National Sex Work Sector Plan last year in March. And amongst other things, this plan is aimed at reducing the spread of HIV among sex workers. And this was largely in response to the challenge that our country faces in relation to sex workers being the most vulnerable, the highest vulnerable in the country, in that it was found that up to 70% of them continue to contract HIV. The plan provides a standardized minimum package of services that we would like to see provided by all implementing partners within and outside of government. This core package of services has been designed to encompass the multifaceted lives of sex workers. It calls for national coordination of a range of interventions that are meant to respond to this challenge, and these are biomedical, they are behavioral and social, as well as structural barriers that continue to confront sex workers on a daily basis. Now, evidence indicates that effective HIV prevention, the care and treatment packages for sex workers, their clients, those who use those sex services, and their children should be tailored to local context, and that such interventions should be led and implemented by the sex workers themselves. The sex work sector plan, therefore, seeks to support sex workers not only with healthcare services, but also support them in as far as ensuring that their human rights are protected and advanced, their psychosocial and economic rights are also advanced, the empowerment of sex workers in a variety of ways, economically and otherwise, is also advanced. Now, many of us may know that the South African Law Commission was given a task to look at law reform in as far as the possible decriminalization of sex work. Now, the Law Commission has completed its work, and the Cabinet has decided that the report on the work that they did should be released for public comment as part of a broader consultation process. Once comments have been received from the public, government will finalize a position on the various options that are proposed by the Law Commission. As this work continues, I encourage all sectors of society to support the National Sex Work Sector Plan, understanding that reduced infection rates among sex workers will in the end impact on infection rates in the general population, while ensuring that their constitutional rights of sex workers are protected. Now, this is an important task that all of us need to embark on, because sex workers are just as great and good citizens as all of us. They need to have their rights protected, and we need to join them in ensuring that all the services, all the rights that they should have are advanced, protected, and enhanced. So it's a call on all of us to join in this task of making sure that this plan is implemented and implemented effectively. When will the Law Commission's report be issued? It will be issued soon. It's going to happen. How soon? It's going to be very, very soon. And that is going to give us all an opportunity to discuss the various, if I'm protected from those who are howling about the plan.
Honorable members, please be quiet. You can't be throwing words like that around.
Now, this is going to be released soon, and we
Honorable member, you're out of order. What's wrong with you?
We invite all South Africans to participate in the issue, in the sharp issue that is going to arise, the decriminalization of sex work or not decriminalizing it. That is going to be an important discussion that all of us as South Africans should have. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Mente.
Enkosi, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, please allow me by starting with recognizing our SWET organization up there from the Western Cape in the gallery. And Deputy President, when you answer the next question, you must know they are sitting here listening to you. Those are the courageous members that protect the sex workers. Now, Deputy President, with your answer that you've just provided, acknowledging that we have a vulnerable group and you are sitting with the law reform findings in the cabinet, we just want the date as to when and where are you releasing.
Now, the current law in South Africa allows men to buy sex, but it criminalizes women for selling sex that are at work. How is that allowed in a democratic country? When are we decriminalizing the sex work? We are talking about women who are at job. They are at work. They are not doing anything wrong. So we must protect women in South Africa.
Honorable
Now
members,
we want to know, when are you decriminalizing the whole system to not allow men to buy sex when you cannot allow women to sell sex? Thank you very much.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Clearly, it's quite clear that this topic evokes a lot of interest.
I noticed that, Honorable Deputy President, and I wish members could be quiet because your noise is not improving your arguments at all. Please go ahead, Deputy President.
For a minute, I thought I was being booed. But it's quite clear that people are talking about this in an excited way, because this evokes a lot of interest and excitement amongst people. So, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Mendes has raised an issue, and it's quite a serious issue. It's a matter that the South African Law Commission has dealt with. And in their report, they obviously go deep into this matter, and they are going to put out a number of options. And the reason that the cabinet felt that this matter should be released for public discussion and debate is precisely this. There are different views among South Africans on precisely this matter, whether to decriminalize or to retain the criminalization. Now, when it comes to the criminalization, it's quite bizarre. Bizarre in the sense that sex workers themselves say, this is so contradictory, because on the one hand, the government hands out condoms to, yes, sex workers and everyone. So sex workers participate in getting these condoms, and as soon as they have them, and these are tools of their trade, and once they have these tools of their trade, the police are waiting for them around the corner. They arrest them and confiscate the tools of their trade. And they say, how can a government act in such a contradictory manner? The one hand gives us condoms, the other hand takes the condoms away from us. And we are conducting our business and our work. Now, these are matters that need to be discussed properly amongst all of us as South Africans. It is quite a serious matter because a number of other people have religious views on this matter. Others have moral views, and others have ethical and a whole number of other views, and cultural, and you name it. And others have party views. Some parties have views on these matters. And others have gender views and what have you. So what we need to do is to, once the report is released, and it's going to be released soon, Honorable Mendes, it'll be released soon, and thereafter the debate must rage, and out of the debate that will rage, the government will then be able to arrive at a conclusion which in the end will finally be brought here to Parliament to be debated, and thereafter we may have to amend the law in one shape or form or another. So that is the invitation to all South Africans to participate in this very important matter. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Anchen Dreyer.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, what the Deputy President has said sounds all very good and well, but you've actually got to put your money where your mouth is. The problem is with this plan, it's a great plan, it's not being implemented. And the reason for the lack of implementation is because your government has not committed 1 cent to any of the components of this plan. And let me tell you exactly which departments are involved. The Office of the Deputy President, Social Development, Justice, Women, Small Business Development, Trade and Industry, and the SAPS. They've not committed 1 cent to this program. They are relying on unreliable donor funds for those parts of that program that have been implemented. So my question is, when will the Deputy President ensure that funds are committed to this program by all the relevant departments, and by what date?
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm glad that you've done your homework and you've outlined all the departments that are involved. The Office of the Deputy President is not an implementing department. I just want you to know that office, listen first, that office does not even have money to implement anything. So just be aware of that. However, I'm quite happy that you are saying from your knowledge, your either research or evidence, the plan is not being implemented. I find that hard to believe, but I'm going to follow this one up. And when I next come here, you can ask me a question again to see the extent to which this matter is being implemented. Because I launched it, and in launching it, it was backed by funding. Funding was available, and when I launched it, the active participants were the sex workers themselves, who were very pleased that government finally is coming to their aid and assistance. So I will follow this one up. I will not agree or deny what you're saying, but I will find out and I'll come back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, let me once again thank you for your intervention in Johannesburg, where the police had confiscated the condoms of the sex workers, and your intervention helped in having them returned. Deputy President, also let me say, yes, I agree with you, a lot of work is being done by the South African Law Commission, and one such intervention was where South Africa had proposed, even in the SADC region, where countries were calling for criminalization, a law on HIV specific, and South Africa actually successfully opposed that. That was in the interest of all the sex workers who were mainly the target. Thank you very much for that. Deputy President, it's quite obvious that sex workers at the moment are being harassed, intimidated, especially by police officers. Now, whilst this entire process is unfolding, do you think there's something government can do to protect the sex workers until this matter is resolved from any further harassment and intimidation? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Clearly, the harassment of sex workers, in my view, should stop. Because they are people just like all of us. And if they are transgressing various laws, then they need to be dealt with. But in as far as the work that they do, one would like to see a situation where, yes, we go through this matter, finalize it, and thereafter their situation should then be addressed once again. So it is a suggestion from the Honorable Sheikh. It is something that I think in a number of other areas it is being sort of observed, but the law is the law. Currently, the law in our country prohibits that type of economic activity, and hence I spoke about the two hands of the law that do not talk to each other. On the one hand, we assist, and on the other hand, we arrest. That should not be a matter that we easily get involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. According to the 19th edition of the South African Health Review, South Africa has over 150,000 adult sex workers and over 38,000 child prostitutes. Deputy President, the Deputy President has spoken of programs for sex workers to promote safe sex, yet studies show that programs to promote safe sex practices are notorious for failing for many reasons, including poor mental health, low self-esteem, the drug habits that undermine motivation and the ability to adopt safer sex behaviors. Deputy President, France is one of several countries now criminalizing prostitution and has made the buying of sex illegal as opposed to the selling. Decriminalizing creates a buyer's market, of course, making sellers even more vulnerable. Have you considered that criminalizing prostitution and making the buying of sex illegal would result in greater protection for women and children, both boys and girls? We're not presently, it feels to me like we are presently capitulating to the well-funded campaigns pushing the interests of the multi-billion-dollar industry run by organized crime syndicates. And we have to be more creative than we are being now, and we can't just sell women and children down the drain into even worse predicament than they already are. Thank you.
Deputy President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the issue that the Honorable Member is raising is precisely the debate that we should have. Other countries, and she cited one, other countries have decriminalized sex work in part. They criminalize the buying and decriminalize the selling. Other countries do it the other way around. Now, those are the options that are open. Other countries continue to criminalize the selling as well as the buying. If you are both found in the act, you are both arrested and charged. In other cases, they only look at the buyer and charge the buyer and let the seller scot-free. So those are the debates that we should have as a country. And a number of, if you like, Northern Hemisphere countries have opted for one form or another. And the jury is still out on how effective criminalizing buying rather than selling is most effective and works better. So in the end, I would say let the debate be entered into. Let us debate this matter. Let us discuss it and see how best we come out as South Africans. And in the end, it is going to be a South African solution to a global challenge and problem. The issue of the number of sex workers in our country is more or less agreed, as well as children who are brought into prostitution or into sex work. So if once we have this debate, we will be able to give maximum protection to those vulnerable communities that require the protection of the law and the Constitution. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. That concludes questions to the Deputy President. Thank you, sir. The next item on the order paper is a motion in the name...
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member, what are you raising on?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, just before we continue with the rest of the programme, I noticed something today in the House that is quite disturbing. And I think that there's actually 2 points, and that we should put it on record. That your talk button, the speakers list, has been reset during the actual question time by the speaker. I pushed the button, the light went on, she looked at me, she switched it off. She cleared it, and we pushed the button again. We are pleased, I want to make a request that if it is not available, that for today's sitting, that from question 13 to question 15, the speakers list are made available, and also for any reset that was done in between. And that it should be a standing order that the speakers list must be made available to all political parties. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's done. Honourable members, can I make a ruling on this?
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Honourable member, I would like you to take that matter formally to the rules, because I think you are making an appeal and so on. I will, however, say that as presiding officers, we ensure that we have an inclusive list in all the lists of political parties that ask questions. So that is the decision that we make from here. But you can present that to the rules for us to look at it and so on. We will give you an answer, an additional answer there. Honorable members, the next is the motion in the name of the Chief Whip of the Manjab. Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we move that the House suspends Rule 292A, which provides inter alia that the debate on the second reading of a bill may not commence before at least 3 working days have elapsed since the committee's report was tabled, for the purpose of conducting the second reading debate today on the Criminal Procedure Amendment Act in this House. We so move on, Deputy Speaker.
Now put the motion. Any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The first order of the day. Secretary will read the first order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on the Border Management Authority Bill.
Now recognize the Chief Whip. Oh, Honorable. The Chief Whip should be. And then? Okay, yeah. Chief Whip, it's your turn, sir.
I move for the adoption of the Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill. Thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Is there any objection? No objections. Agreed to. The second order, the Secretary will read the second order.
Second reading debate, Border Management Authority Bill.
The Minister of Home Affairs,
Deputy Speaker, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of the National Assembly. The introduction of the Border Management Authority Bill 2016 represents a radical shift from the colonial and apartheid systems that were informed by a desire and a mission to create and sustain racism, hostilities, and hatred rather than dignified migration. The vision and the mission of the BMA is embedded within the democratic values and deep respect for a culture of human rights. The Freedom Charter correctly asserts that no government can justify claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people and the people share in the country's wealth, and also ensure that peace and friendship prevails and South Africa is a fully independent state. The NDP Vision 2030 reminds us that today's South Africa looks completely different from the South Africa before 1994. The NDP states that in the next few decades, the world will experience unprecedented changes. These include an explosion of urbanization, which will create wealth and sharpen strains on the ecosystem, revolutionary developments in science and technology that will transform opportunities, introduce new risks, drive wider social integration and a rebalancing of economic power from the developed to developing countries that will potentially lift another billion people out of poverty. We firmly believe that the BMA's vision is in line with Africa's development vision, Agenda 2063, which asserts that Africa shall be a continent where the free movement of people, capital, goods and services will result in significant increases in trade and investment amongst African countries, rising to unprecedented levels and strengthen Africa's place in global trade. The BMA will play an important role in supporting the creation of an inclusive and growing economy at the front line of our country's borders by facilitating the legitimate movement of people and goods, and also skilling our border guards and ensuring that we are in line, we work in line with new technologies that ensure security and reliability of information. The BMA will fully embrace the digital revolution, as I've said, honorable members. Today, over 40 million people enter and leave our country on an annual basis. People come to South Africa for different reasons. Some come as asylum seekers, economic migrants, others seeking education and training opportunities, and of course, some come to enjoy the leisure and tourism in our country. However, border management poses formidable challenges, not only for South Africa, but also for receiving countries worldwide. The BMA bill before the House today is underpinned by a number of imperatives, including, I just mentioned the two, a new policy paradigm of integrated border management, and a determination to facilitate the legal and secure movement of people and goods across the border. Our imperatives are further driven by national interest, our own national interest, which includes the establishment of a national identity system for all people who reside in South Africa, secure and reliable. We must be frank about some of the key problems characterizing the border environment in our country. Our fundamental challenge is that of our 72 ports of entry. In those, there are still challenges of government departments and state agencies operating in a fragmented and incoherent manner with conflicting policy positions, non-aligned implementation, and varied interpretation of the border management regulatory regime. This inefficient and ineffective border often leads to poor services being rendered to traders and travelers at ports of entry. This impacts negatively on travelers and traders and also creates a conducive environment for corruption. Honorable Deputy Speaker, government has undergone an extensive consultative process with affected government departments, seeking consensus on creating a single command and control border management authority under the Department of Home Affairs. His Excellency, Ubabumsholozi, President Jacob Zuma, made the commitment in 2009 that we will be establishing a border management agency. Cabinet resolved formally to establish the BMA in June 2013 and consequently endorsed a vision for the BMA in 2014.
Honorable Minister, I'm afraid your time has expired.
This vision constitutes the guiding framework that informed the architecture and substance of the BMA before the House today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mashile.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honorable members and the guests, it has been a long road that we have traversed in processing this bill since it was introduced in Parliament. Almost 1 year of sweating. Much of the time was to ensure that we produce a high quality of a piece of legislation. It should, however, be noted that due to the complexity of the bill, it took time to be clear in our minds on the nature and the character of the animal we seek to establish. This entailed the cabinet process, the NEDLEC process, as well as this parliamentary process. Deputy Speaker, I can now attest that there is clarity in our minds and the affected departments were clarified on the intent and expected process moving forward. Hence, today we have a radical bill that establishes a border management authority in front of us for consideration. Honorable members, the department introduced the bill on the 25th of May 2016 in Parliament. That's last year. I should indicate that during June 2016, we wrote to all departments involved in our land, air, and sea ports of entry for comment on the bill. The bill was then published on the 14th of August for public comment with a closing date set for the 8th of September 2016. Of course, only the Justice and Correctional Services Department made a written response. The Department of Police and National Treasury were engaged by the committee during the public hearings. On the 16th of August, members of the Security Cluster Committees, as well as the Standing Committee on Finance, attended our first public hearing. This was a briefing to the committee by the Department of Home Affairs, SAPS and National Treasury. It was at this stage that lack of coordination and cooperation surfaced among the Department of Home Affairs, SAPS, and National Treasury. We then urged the three departments to resolve their disputes by the 13th of September 2016. On the 13th and 14th September 2016, we held further public hearings on the bill. Invitations were extended to COSATU, NEHAU, and Business Unity South Africa. Busa, however, could not attend, but sent a written submission only. The hearing was informed by the Minister of Home Affairs that the Director General of Home Affairs and the Acting National Commissioner of SAPS have a signed agreement on their dispute. There was, however, no progress in relation to the dispute relating to National Treasury. On the 20th of September 2016, the Department of Home Affairs responded to the submissions and the verbal presentations made during the public hearings. On lack of progress with National Treasury, the committee further persuaded the Department of Home Affairs and National Treasury to reach some agreement by the 28th September 2016. This was based on the fact that the Department of Home Affairs sent a proposal to National Treasury on the 12th of September 2016 for consideration. Of course, is that National Treasury did not respond by the 20th of September 2016, hence the directive to agree by the 28th of September 2017. This request drew a blank. This House should be informed that during October 2016, the Deputy President was called upon to intervene as a leader of government business between the Department of Home Affairs and National Treasury. Two meetings were held, first in November 2016 and the second in February 2017. Both meetings did not assist us that much. We must indicate that it was a painful experience that affected our legislative process. Deputy Speaker, the contention has been a consequential inclusion of customs officials in the BMA and a possible collection of revenue at the ports of entry. This issue had now been resolved by the progressive proposal made by Home Affairs to accommodate the perceived fears of National Treasury. It should now be pointed out that only the frontline officials of customs at ports of entry are expected to be transferred and revenue collection excluded, and still rest with SARS, and also such revenue not form part of the BMA funds. The goal pursued here was to establish a single integrated border management command that will take full responsibility and accountability of all activities at our ports of entry. Deputy Speaker, in the committee we had continuous fruitful participation of the opposition parties, and valuable input were made on the bill. The most input related to, but not limited to, improving the management core of the authority, standards and qualifications, vetting of officials, accountability issues, cooperation and coordination with stakeholders, implementation protocols, and oversight tools. I'm happy that we have produced a piece of legislation that addresses all aspects that may affect the functioning of the Border Management Authority. I, however, do regret the non-support of EFF after their valuable contribution. I hope that the DA issue has been removed also. The question to be asked is, what kind of an animal is created here? How is it structured and to function? One may briefly describe, without going to details, this BMA is expected to facilitate the legitimate flow of humans and goods in an efficient manner while mitigating against illegal activities across our borders. It will be headed by a commissioner with 2 deputies, with clearly spelled out requirements on skills and qualifications in relation to their responsibilities. We expect one to deputize on administrative services and the other on border guard services. It is expected that the public servants doing duty at our ports of entry from different departments will be transferred to the BMA. Additional personnel will be recruited as required. Infrastructure and equipment that was used for border management activities will be expected to be transferred to the BMA. We do expect that budgetary allocations will follow these personnel and functions to the BMA. This is integration to Border Management Authority as envisaged. Indeed, a radical shift in border control. The Commissioner will be the accounting officer reporting to the Minister of Home Affairs. The Minister will chair an oversight committee of ministers affected by the activities at our ports of entry. There will also be a border technical committee populated by Director Generals or their representatives at senior level. This is an advisory body to the Interministerial Committee. The Minister is empowered to establish an advisory committee to deal with any specific matter concerning border management. The reports of the BMA will be tabled in Parliament. Deputy Speaker, we should indicate that this BMA is not going to mushroom overnight of the signing of this bill by the President. No. We expect a phased-in process that may take months or even years for complete establishment to be realized. There is a lot of work of policy development for the BMA, consultations and negotiations of the quantum of persons, equipment, and infrastructure to be transferred to the BMA. We therefore call upon all organs of state involved and affected by the establishment of the Border Management Authority to cooperate fully. We need this entity as of yesterday to deal with the porousness of our borders. Our people have been making a call to the ANC to attend to border control over a decade now without visible response. We are now saying, your ANC has heard you and is taking a bold step today. This House, led by the ANC, is then persuaded to support this Border Management Authority Bill 2016. The ANC leads and the ANC leaves. Amandla.
Honorable Hussein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. If you ask most South Africans, they'll tell you the ANC is dying, it's not living. Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, the objective of this piece of legislation, shush now, is aimed at addressing the fragmentation of operations at our ports of entry in the country. The intended outcome is to bring the various departments that operate at our ports of entry under a single command and control unit. At first glance, it all seems like a great idea, but when one looks at the detail and considers the real consequences and implications of the bill, one will soon realize that this is probably one of the worst pieces of legislation that has come before this House. But before I do that, Honorable Speaker, it will be unfair of me not to acknowledge and appreciate the cooperation we received from the chairperson and members of the committee, as well as the officials who worked with us on this bill. I recognize that there have been a number of areas of concern which we expressed that were eventually acceded to, and several changes have been effected since the first draft of this bill was laid on the table. We are very grateful for the cooperation. But there still remains many areas of the bill which the ANC have been very stubborn about, leading us to believe that there are other ulterior motives behind this bill. In time, these motives will emerge. I suspect that this is yet another attempt to create another state entity, which will soon be captured by the greedy politicians who operate in this government department. Firstly, Honored Speaker, this is a framework legislation designed to provide for the establishment of a massive border management authority that will control our borders and ports of entry, but not a single person, and not even the minister herself, or even Gigawa, whose pet project this is, can even tell you with any form of certainty what this BMA is going to cost the country. Estimates are in the region of about 22 billion rand, yet the impact assessment recommends that the same exercise could be conducted by the South African National Defence Force for about only 3 billion rand. If only they could get their act together and protect our borders more efficiently. The chairperson asked, what would this animal look like? Well, actually, it's probably going to look more like a monster that we are creating. The former finance minister who got shafted for having the courage to act in the country's best interest expressed reservations about the costs of this exercise and warned about the spiraling expenditure. But Gigaba was having none of it. His usual stubbornness and arrogance stood in the way of acting with any sense of reason.
Hussein, Honorable Member, you know how to refer to members. Please do that way. Don't just call him by his name. I mean, like, you know that.
The Honorable Gigaba was having none of it. The Honorable Gigaba's usual stubbornness and arrogance stood in the way of acting with any sense of reason. This bill was hanging in the air for a while because Treasury would not support the financial implications in it. An acrimonious exchange of words through ministerial correspondences between the two departments is evident that not everyone in the ANC cabinet is on the same page with regards to this bill. But given the recent developments in the ANC, this doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. Just days before the ANC forced the bill through the committee, Honorable Pravin Gordhan was fired, and guess who gets to replace him? One of the other concerns that the former finance minister expressed is that this bill aims to capture the customs and excise operations of SARS. That operation of SARS brings in about 30% of our country's revenue, amounting to billions of rands. Minister Gordhan supported the views of the Davis Tax Commission, which made very strong recommendations that revenue streams of SARS must not be fragmented. However, the new minister will tell you that only the customs frontline operations will be taken over and not the revenue collection. Well, if this is true, then where will the money come from to operate the BMA? If the argument is that it will simply be transferred from the other departments who operate at the border, well, they were under-resourced in the first place, which is why these operations at the borders are so ineffective. Simply transferring the money from one department to another is not going to give you any different outcomes. Now that Honorable Gigaba has managed to elbow Honorable Gordhan out of the way, he must tell the country and the world whether he will be respecting the recommendations of the Davis Tax Commission, or will he be dismissing its recommendations as he has done in this case. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the other area of concern is the constitutionality of this bill. The Border Management Authority is being established as an armed force. Its intended roles and functions are reserved only for the SANDF or SAPS, as far as our Constitution is concerned. This is why the South African National Defence Force has been removed from this bill initially. Our view is that the same should apply in the case of SAPS, and such policing functions can only be provided by the South African police in terms of our Constitution. Section 13 of the SAPS Act, for example, grants powers only to the police service to search vessels in our waters. Then another problematic part in this bill is that it grants officers of the BMA search and seizure powers within a 10-kilometer radius, within the border port of entry. In theory, this appears fine, but in practice, it infringes on the rights of ordinary citizens and is in conflict with the recent Constitutional Court ruling. At the OR Tambo International Airport, for example, there are scores of private businesses, courier companies, and commercial enterprises that operate within these precincts. Whilst we agree that the current border management functions are far too fragmented, we do not believe that the establishment of a border management agency is the solution to the problem. What is simply required is better management of the current systems, holding officials accountable for their failures, firing the lazy comrades that you have appointed, and implementing better coordination of operations between various departments. If our ministers were doing their jobs in the first place, we would have not been in this situation, and it would have not been costing us billions of rands to fix the problems that they created in the first place. There is no reason why the same outcomes cannot be achieved at a senior management level through proper transversal coordination of operations. And finally, Honorable Speaker, this bill although its main intention is to address the fragmentation of border management, it offers absolutely no solutions to the problem whatsoever. All it does is create another level of government bureaucracy, which will add massive strain to an already burdened fiscus, but provide no tangible solutions to the current problems. For these reasons, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the DA will not be supporting this bill. I thank you.
Thanks. Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. So, Deputy President, the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs said here that they asked you to mediate between the Ministries of Finance and Home Affairs to find common ground on some of the issues that are contentious in this Border Management Authority bill. I'm going to illustrate what those are now. So in the border law enforcement area, you've got a variety of entities and government departments that operate the Home Affairs, SAPS, Agriculture, DTI through the National Regulator of Compulsory Specifications, SARS, and a variety of other agencies that exist there in terms of regulating the entry of people and goods into South Africa and their exit, but also the collection of customs and excise duties. Now, customs and excise duties in South Africa constitute 30% of the National Revenue Fund, more than 300 billion rands. Of the 1.3 billion that is collected by SARS is collected as customs and the excise duties. Now, this BMA bill is proposing that it should enforce laws in the border enforcement law area, and that enforcement must include customs. And that is the issue that we are standing to say it cannot be that you're going to, through proclamation of Section 97 of the Constitution, shift the powers of revenue collection from the Ministry of Finance to the Minister of Home Affairs, because that begins to balkanize. It fragments revenue collection. And I can tell you today, you will not be able, through a new agency, to collect the levels of revenue that are being collected currently within a SARS component which has got the capacity and the skill to deal with that. We do not have a problem as the EFF with the border management authority or agency, but we can have that without the customs collection principle and processes that you're supposed to have dealt with. So those are some of the issues that you must deal with in case you succeed in removing the Guptas from the ANC, because it's them who had been saying that customs collections should be stratified, should be balkanized, so that they can have entry into the BMA and give it the direction that they will be looking into. There are lots of other issues that we can look into in terms of how the BMA is constituted, particularly in terms of how government entities are constituted. That is just going to be the commissioner and then who reports to the minister. They shouldn't necessarily, in terms of governance principles, be a board that manages a border management agency, and then a commissioner reports to that board. If you check in entities that do not have boards, majority of the times the commissioners or CEOs of those agencies, they do not have proper governance mechanisms and principles. They increase their salaries as and when they wish. They give themselves bonuses, because the only relationship they have is with a minister and without any board that has got committees to look into the functions of that particular entity. And the BMA that is being rushed now doesn't have proper governance mechanisms. It will not solve the solution. They do not provide any solution. But the most important thing that you must never do, whether you are ANC or DA or EFF, is to balkanize or fragment revenue collection in South Africa, particularly at a time when we're beginning to gain some stability. I think that we tried to knock some sense on Mr. Gigaba when he came to the first meeting of the Standing Committee on Finance, and he admitted that there must not be balkanization, but the current legislation, if we adopt it as is, gives the powers of the Minister of Home Affairs to, through the BMA, collect revenue, which is our customs and excise duties, and that is not acceptable. We must not agree on a bill that proposes such, because it's going to undermine the integrity of the revenue collection in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, as the IFP would like to congratulate the Minister, Minister Mkhize, on her appointment as Minister of Home Affairs, and the IFP and our President, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, would definitely like to send our congratulations to her. Honorable Deputy Speaker, effective and efficient border law enforcement at our various points of entry and along our borders is mandatory. We are a state and as such bear the honors and obligation of securing our sovereign borders. Of this there can be no dispute. The effectiveness of the manner in which we choose to do this, however, as well as the entities and finally authority we utilize to carry out this mandate are through this bill becoming a cause for concern. The establishment of a border management authority as a national public entity under a commissioner appointed by the President, and one which would include elements of the SAPS, the South African National Defence Force, Custom and Excise and Agriculture, overseen by the Department of Home Affairs, appears on the face of it to be a perfect recipe for potential corrupt activity. Issues ranging from collection of customs of excise revenue, which I might add is a sizable annual amount, should remain within the specialist charge of the South African Revenue Services. Of this, there can be no compromise. There are also the legal issues over the creation of another policing service, which must be carefully thought through, as they carry with them a wide array of possible negatives that would have to be mitigated against. However, Speaker, this bill was delayed last term from coming to the House over the concerns which were raised by the Finance and Home Affairs departments, to whom we would have handled the collection of the revenue at our ports of entry. This remains a contentious issue, although the departments are talking about signing a memorandum of understanding, and I think they are finalizing now, and the IFP supports this completely. Honorable Deputy Speaker, purposes of this bill which seek to achieve actually a lot of areas are long overdue and absolutely necessary. The manner through that it seeks to achieve them is subject to question. Checks and balances must be implemented, but still be nimble enough not to stifle its opening or its operations through unnecessary bureaucracy. The IFP supports this bill, subject to the reservations as mentioned above. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kubisa.
Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the border management bill tabled here today has been in the legislative domain and pipeline for some time now, and has generated a fair share of interest, controversy, and objections along the way. We understand as the NFP that has been a tussle with regard to the BMA. There has been a disagreement between the Treasury and the Department of Home Affairs on the revenue collection of the new proposed BMA. Chairperson, the National Freedom Party understands the value of a consolidated border management authority, and in principle, we support the creation of such. Our country has had several incidents of xenophobia in the past, largely attributed to competition for scarce social resources, economic resources between the poorest of the poor and the foreign nationals who do not have legal right to be in South Africa. These ugly incidents of xenophobia have opened up a deep wound of shame in our collective consciousness. And if proposed BMA could function efficiently as intended, then it would go some way in addressing the underlying root causes of xenophobia in our country. The National Freedom Party is also concerned about having a consolidated BMA which might look good on paper, but is then entrusted to a State Department which has a checkered track record in the management of asylum seekers, refugees, and immigrants. In many quarters, the blame for the influx of undocumented foreign nationals to South Africa is laid at the feet of Home Affairs. Rife corruption and unclear immigration, asylum, and refugee policies have all contributed to the current status quo. And the root endemic cause of this has been failure to adopt clear policies. And the proposed BMA will be facing enormous challenges to root out endemic corruption and to deliver South Africa a system of border control that is efficient, lawful, and in accordance with our Constitution. In conclusion, we have our reservation as the National Freedom Party with regard to the BMA, and of course, we'll give a chance to the Home Affairs to ensure that the bill is enacted. We believe that the creation of such a consolidated entity could succeed, but the initiative now has to filter through policy level. As an entity, the BMA will do more than merely control border access. It will be the front line of implementing policy on migration, asylum, and refugees. And for it to succeed, the BMA will need to be empowered by clear policy guidelines, and plenty of political will and determination at the executive level.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I sympathize with you for not knowing what the minister's name is. There's been far too many cabinet reshuffles now. We've lost track of who serves in the cabinet.
We tata Plenary short.
Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members, without a doubt, there is a need for a sustainable and integrated border management system and authority that effectively coordinates and facilitates secure travel and legitimate trade in line with the Constitution and other relevant laws of the country. Therefore, the creation of the Border Management Authority as envisaged in the bill under discussion is significant in that it seeks to address the fragmentation that characterizes the current system of border management. The current system of border management is not helping us in our efforts to discharge our constitutional obligations to secure our sovereignty. We must, however, note that when you look at Section 5C of the Border Management Bill, it does not spell out clearly the extent to which the BMA or the functions of the authority are insofar as revenue collection is concerned. We also need to be clear about the budgetary requirements and the source of funding for this BMA, given the spread of responsibilities over many departments like the South African Police Services, the South African National Defense Force, and others. It is important that custom is allowed to play a central role in collecting excise duties and excise tax without being integrated in the Border Management Authority. With all its challenges, SARS remains one of the most efficient tax collectors in the world, and it does so in a manner that is consistent with our Constitution. Therefore, collection of monies must remain a function of SARS, and we're not happy with assurances that memorandums would address this very important matter. Certainly, South Africa is not in need of a heavily armed quasi-military parastatal run at Home Affairs, which goes around collecting revenue which might be used in a manner that is inconsistent with the objectives of the bill and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So Home Affairs must, within this context of this bill, remain with its functions, and the Customs and Revenue Service do their jobs as determined by the laws of this country. For these reasons and the reservations that we've expressed here, the United Democratic Movement does not support this bill. Much obliged to you, Speaker. Thank you very much.
Honorable Raputi.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members and distinguished guests, ANC supports this bill. And happy Africa Day. We want to say to all South Africans and our African brothers and sisters, happy Africa Month. However, if you say that you love your country and Africa, you will abide by the laws and that governs it. South Africans, you have spoken you are still speaking to our government that our borders are porous. The Border Management Authority presented here today in Parliament seek to address your plight. The porousness of the borders has resulted in many challenges. That is human trafficking.
1, 2, 3, V454. Testing sound. This guy is not there. Yeah. Yebo that. Right akhona kunjani? Oh nisaza uthetha apha. Sanimamela kakuhle uba nithini. Sizamamela. Nawuqoba ngo-8. Oh, okay. 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 Makathethe into ezimileyo kakuhle.
Spiritual guidance. The preacher here arrived as a wolf in a sheepskin. It is therefore that Border Management Authority Bill, when enacted, will be able to distinguish between the wolf and the sheep. And in a township language, we say, Fong Kong counterfeit people. Presently, honorable members, the border management, how it's been run is very fragmented. And to rectify these challenges, Border Management Authority will be a solution. It will be managed as a single command and it will be well coordinated. Border Management Authority will perform the border law enforcement function within the borderline and ports of entry for accountability purpose. South Africans, your security is more valuable than any silver and gold. Citing monetary issues, as my DA leader has said there, it's not an issue. What is an issue here is a well-coordinated borders. Proper coordination is a prerequisite because some around here, they never see any good in any problem. Citing the issue of a revenue being collected at the border is not true. So the ANC support this bill. I thank you.
Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, there is logic in the proposed establishment of a fully fledged border management agency with a purpose of integrating and coordinating the management and securing the borders of the Republic and protecting national interest on the condition that revenue collection must remain with Treasury. Every sovereign state has the inherent right, obligation and responsibility to secure its borders, monitor and police those who wish to enter, prevent the smuggling and trafficking of human beings and goods, ensure the protection of its social and economic development. Most would agree that our current border management structures, systems and processes are messy, incoherent and dysfunctional. But COPE is hesitant to support this bill and the establishment of this mega agency, given the maladministrative, corrupt and irrational presidency of Mr. Zuma, growing and continued grand capture and corruption of organs and agencies of our state, the inability of his government to develop and maintain capable and functional organs of state. I want to give an example. In 2004, this House adopted the South African Social Security Agencies Act, The purpose of this was to provide for the establishment of a South African Social Security Agency as an agent for the administration and payment of social assistance. We know that SASSA had to outsource the primary reason for which it was established, the paying of social grants. The SASSA was essentially captured and abused by the executive, that it had been marred by gross corruption and ineptitude. It will take tens of millions in another 5 years to be in a position to do what it was supposed to do, according to the discredited Minister Dlamini. But back to what's on the table. Like the SASSA Act, the bill seeks to establish a mega national public entity, basically a parastatal which will operate outside of a public service. The authority is also proposed to be vested with broad powers, including border law enforcement functions, being established as an armed service, being responsible for facilitation and management of a legitimate movement of persons and goods within the border law enforcement area, and at ports of entry, and being responsible for the facilitation of a collection of revenue. Further, it is the President who solely appoints the Commissioner of the authority, and it is the President who is empowered to remove and suspend the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner. Under this corrupt ANC-led government and under the current discredited, corrupted and irrational President who disregarded the national interest and who is a prime player in the capture of our state and the sovereignty of our nation, are we not empowering further corruption, state capture on a grand scale, and setting up another agency for abject failure? Under a different government and president, and under a new parliament committed to carrying out its duties and oversight, COPE will support the bill, but not as matters stand. Thank
Honorable
you.
Carter, before you leave the podium, would you like to tell the House the clarification you received about your earlier comment from the table?
Well, you're talking about the one of the resetting of buttons. Deputy Speaker?
Okay, okay,
No,
I'll do that.
Deputy Speaker, you're talking about the one on the comment or the
Yes,
question I
about the
raised
speaker.
about the table.
Yes.
Well, according to the table, they are saying that it was the table that is resetting the button, not the speaker. But I still, I tend to agree, okay? But then it should not be reset. The button should not be reset when it suits the table. It should be reset at the end of a question.
Okay.
And the record should be made available to everyone. Thank
Honorable
you.
Carter? No, I just wanted Honorable Carter to do the good thing. She chooses to add fire to the staff. Go ahead, Honorable Member. Proceed. Honorable Dudley.
Thank you. Border management is exercised by multiple organs of state, and so those promoting this bill say there's a need for integrated and coordinated border management of our porous borders, especially in view of instances of terror and trafficking emerging. Now, detractors, on the other hand, accuse Home Affairs of having had a total disregard for the consultative process by doing the complete opposite to what everyone said. The Green Paper, a collation of hundreds of expert submissions, they say, appears to have been largely set aside in the official White Paper. Now, former CEO of a Cape Town Migrant Welfare Association has estimated that over 2.5 billion rand will be required for infrastructure and operational detainment centres over a 7-year period. Resources that, of course, will place significant additional strain on the country's budget. Because processing of asylum claims is severely backlogged, with some people waiting 14 years for a document that should by law take 180 days, those dealing with migrant welfare would prefer to see the hiring of more staff at Home Affairs to manage migration. They are convinced that the hiring of capable staff to resolve backlogs and address complex issues would be a better deterrent for illegal migrants and less costly than building detention centres or buying guns for border guards. The ACDP would like to have seen a greater emphasis in the bill on checks and balances to prevent corruption. We also note with concern that the issue of customs and excise collection has been cause for tension between Home Affairs and Treasury, with the Finance Ministry wanting the function to remain under the South African Revenue Service. The ACDP is not satisfied that accountability, both from an operational and a financial standpoint, has been properly considered, leaving the whole concept vulnerable. While uncertainty regarding the legislation exists, the ACDP is in favour of the bill being sent back to the committee for these concerns to be clarified and dealt with. The Border Management Authority Bill is meant to ensure effective law enforcement at ports of entry and on our borders, contributing to the facilitation of trade and travel, to the prevention of smuggling and trafficking of human beings and goods, and prevent illegal cross-border movement. The ACDP would like us to be sure, however, that adequate legislation is in place if we are to embark on this very expensive experiment in terms of border control. A global concern with no clear guidelines or indication that these measures can or will be successful. We would like to be sure, rather safe than sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede.
Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members of Parliament. Firstly, let me congratulate Professor Mkhize, who has been appointed as a Minister of Home Affairs. The ANC welcomes you, Honorable Minister. Further, let me thank our government for demonstrating that it listens to concerns of all its people, black and white. And that is that our borders are porous and they need better control and more effective safeguarding. Here we are talking of a land border of 4,471 kilometers, which it shares with 6 neighboring countries, that is Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swaziland. These land borders have to be controlled and safeguarded in a variety of environments, ranging from mountainous terrain to semi-desert areas, day and night, hour after hour, rain or shine. Added to that is a coastline that is approximately 3,924 kilometers, bordering South Africa on 3 sides, with 72 ports of entry. We have 72 ports of entry as South Africa. Added to that is a coastline that is approximately 3,924 kilometers. Every day, our immigration officers, our police, our Navy, our Air Force, our Army, agricultural officers, our health officials, our environmental officers, our intelligence, among others, have to sweat to ensure that they facilitate legitimate flow of humans as well as goods in an efficient and effective manner, while at the same time mitigating against illegal activities. Honorable Chairperson, we know that together as one, they can do more and better. That is why our caring government, and the ANC government is caring, is introducing this legal instrument as a radical shift in order to, 1, contribute to socio-economic development, effective and efficient border law enforcement under a single command and control, to facilitate legitimate trade and secure travel, contribute to the prevention of smuggling and trafficking of human beings and goods, prevent illegal cross-border movement of terrorists, drug smugglers and human trafficking, contribute to the prevention of the Republic's environmental and natural resources, and protect people of our country from harmful and infectious diseases like Ebola and other terrible diseases, as well as pests and substances. In an increasingly globalizing world, governments have to increasingly maintain security while encouraging trade. Our government needs to strike a balance between adhering to its security obligations and facilitation of trade and employs presently 9,000 state officials from at least 5 organs of state that are working at the 72 ports of entry with different conditions of service. Competing priorities, dissimilar tools of trade and equipment, often not sharing information and without a single command. That is clearly not efficient, it is not effective, and therefore needs improvement. The government's response to that is the Border Management Authority, which is an integrated model that will be efficient, economical, and effective. The BMA will be intelligence-driven and risk-based in its integrated approach. Some concerns have been raised about customs and excise, which I think were genuine concerns. This involves about 1% of customs of an estimated 300 billion rands. That is 1% of customs. We are satisfied that this matter has been discussed and handled, and as a result, we have a memorandum of understanding between the Department of Home Affairs and the Minister of Finance. But let me assure you, there is no customs and excise money that will be handled by the BMA. All the customs and excise revenue will be handled by SARS because it has resources and capacities to do that competently. And let me repeat, that will be handled by SARS because it has the necessary capacity and resources to do that job competently. So why are you afraid that it is going to be handled by PMA? Because we didn't even attempt to put in place the resources and capacities that would be necessary for that. So fears that customs and excise will be handled by BMA are misleading and untrue. Akulona iqiniso ukuthi imali kuzoba khona imali ezophathwa abantu abasemngceleni. Imali yonke izophathwa abantu akade bevele beyiphatha, abantu abaqondene nentela, ngoba yibona abakwaziyo ukuyiphatha. Sesibonile iminyaka ngeminyaka beyiphatha ngendlela efanele nangendlela enempumelelo.
Honorable Gumete, take your seat. Yes, Honorable Member, what are you raising on?
Cabanga ukuthi ilungu elihloniphekile esihlala la le committee likhulume iphutha. Liyazi to clause 5 of this bill. Awusho njalo.
Honorable Member, that's not a point of order. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Kusho ukuthi kuhamanga alihlaza ukuthi kuzoba khona imali ezohamba iphathwe iBMA. Imali izophathwa imali ekade
Deputy Speaker.
Abantu abavele kade beyiphatha.
Order. It's unparliamentary to say amanga in this parliament. Please rule on that.
Akashongo kono muntu oshilo lokho. Honorable Gumede uthini baba?
Ngithe ukusho ukuthi imali izophathwa iBMA kuwamanga aluhlaza. Akekho umuntu engithe unamanga.
Yeah. Yeah, no, honorable members, it's a saying, it's not unparliamentary. Yeah. Unless he specifically said, any one person said so, that would be unparliamentary. Proceed, honorable member.
Other members of the committee raised the issue of allowing every person from Africa into South Africa without a passport. What we know is that that is not the mandate of the ANC government. It is not in line with our constitution, and it is not in line with our laws. And that is why the ANC rejected that. Okushuti kukhona kade bethi abantu abangene baphume eSouth Africa ngokuthanda yize bengenazo incwadi. Sasithi ke thina ke asilinikezwanga abantu abasivotela igunya lokuthi sivumele noma ubani angene eSouth Africa aphume ngokuthanda kwakhe. Kunendlela kwavunyelwana ngayo ngokwe-Constitution nangokumthetho. We know that South Africa is a sovereign state. We know that our neighbors are sovereign states, and we are happy with that. Matters of African travel, cross-border travel, let me repeat. Matters of African cross-border travel are discussed at the AU, and we believe that is the appropriate structure for such discussions. The BMA is an innovation, it is progress, and surely will promote a better life for all. If perhaps there are any concerns which I believe are not there, then the process, they can be handled through the process of the NCOP. The ANC supports this bill. Makukhona abasenesikhalo sebengakufaka ke laphana.
Sesiphelile isikhathi sakho.
Yabonga.
Yeah. Honorable Minister.
Honorable members, Deputy Speaker, firstly, I would like to thank all the members who participated. I just want to make emphasis of one or two things and to assure members that the most members who debated based on the original, having not looked at the amended bill, seem to still confuse issues that have already been addressed. I think in all the discussions within the amended bill, it is clear that the proposed BMA, there is no way in which it can confuse functions of different departments. Like, for instance, the police will remain responsible for the functions of the police as in their act. The same applies to defense, and the same applies to SARS. As the ANC has clarified that the amended bill is very clear that the BMA will not collect revenue, and even the 1% which will be paid at the ports of entry will be deposited to the SARS bank account or directly to the National Revenue Fund. All what I can say, honorable members, is that this is critical for the country. We are on an unprecedented growth path, not only here. The issue of international migration cannot be postponed forever. If we want to remain committed to our national identity security, it is important to take the protection of our borders seriously. With regard to the budget, the thinking that has developed through consultation is that functions will be transferred under the commissioner and that is estimated at 3.8 billion. It is estimated that over a 10-year period, the
Honourable
BMA
Minister,
will
please wrap
need
up.
an additional 6 billion. So, honourable members, as a Section 75 bill, it will also need to be submitted to the National Council of Provinces for their consideration before its return. I therefore thank the Committee on Home Affairs for diligently discharging its constitutional
Thanks, Honourable
mandate.
Minister.
Thank you.
Honourable members, that concludes the debate. Are there any objections to the Border Management Authority bill being read a second time? There being no objections, I put a question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Deputy Speaker?
Yes, ma'am.
The DA calls for division. Thank you.
Division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes.
Deputy Speaker, it's like you are prolonging the time for too long. It can't be 5 minutes. We are now far beyond 10 minutes. Can you please close the doors? Honorable members, please take your seats and settle down. I'd like to remind members that they may only vote from their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button below the yes, no, or abstain signs. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as a member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. The question before the House is that the Border Management Authority Bill be read a second time. Are all members in their seats? Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the bill being read a second time, press the yes button. Yes. Those against the no button. No. Wishing to abstain should press abstain. Have all members voted? Okay, the voting session is closed. The whippery has seen you.
No.
Okay. Okay, so how many members? How many? Good. Honourable members, the results are as follows. There are no abstentions, there are 7 noes, there's 189, and we needed a quorum of 201, we don't have it. And I want to, honourable members, before you do anything else, according to Rule 115, members present, it says every member present in the chamber, when the question is put with the doors barred, must vote and record an abstention, provided that in terms of Section 5(2) of the Constitution, the presiding officer has no deliberative vote. A must cast a deciding vote when there is an equal number of votes on each side of the question, may cast a deliberate vote and no question and so on. I'm reading this so that every one of you, hope you have voted. If you haven't, then there's a violation of the rule present here. I just wanted to make that point, but otherwise, we can't read the bill the second time because we do not have a quorum. So we'll proceed to the next item. The Secretary will read the third order.
We're happy that it has been rejected because you don't think up before you do things.
Proceed, honourable member.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill.
Honourable Chief Whip.
I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the last order of the day.
Second reading debate, Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill.
Now, you've changed the names now. I don't have a list.
They didn't tell us. Yeah.
No, honourable member, please proceed, but the ANC must notify us when there's a change. You say there's a Motsecha here, and you haven't told us. Please don't do that next time. Go ahead, it's not your fault.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Just on a point of order, just like clarity, is it a debate or declarations? Because we were informed that it was going to be declarations. Debate would have a speaker's list, and we don't have a speaker's list. So it's declarations.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Honourable member, let's do this. Honourable Singh, the procedure is that the report is introduced. And if you wish to declare, you will request, and we will grant you that. Honourable member? Yes. When you, after she has introduced the report, you will request, if you so wish, to make a declaration as Kubegas is.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I will be introducing the bill on behalf of the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable Matole Motsecha. My name is Kana Pilane Majake. The bill seeks to amend Section 77, 78, and 79 of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977. The bill emanates, amongst others, from the judgment of the Constitutional Court in the divorce and others versus Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development and others, also known as divorce judgment. The bill also seeks to clarify the composition of panels provided for in Section 79 of the Criminal Procedure Act 1977 following the Western Cape High Court judgment of S versus Petro. In the divorce case, the Constitutional Court declared 77(6)(a)(1 and 2 of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977 to be inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid to the extent that it provides for the compulsory imprisonment of an adult accused person and compulsory hospitalization or imprisonment of children. In the case of Section 77(6)(1 of the Criminal Procedure Act 1977, the court suspended the declaration of invalidity for a period of 24 months to allow Parliament to correct the defects in the light of the judgment which was delivered on June 25th, 2015, therefore making the deadline for corrections to be June 25th, 2017. Regarding Section 77(6)(a)(2), the Constitutional Court provided for a read-in provision. The bill, therefore, largely seeks to ensure that the Constitutional Court judgment is complied with by amending the applicable provisions of the Criminal Procedure Act 1977 to remedy the current position of constitutional invalidity. The proposed amendments, therefore, seek to provide the courts with a wider range of options in respect of orders to be issued where the court finds that an accused person is not able to understand the proceedings so as to make a proper defense by reason of mental illness or intellectual disability, or is found to be not criminally responsible for the act by reason of mental illness or intellectual ability. The purpose of the bill is therefore to amend the Criminal Procedure Act 1977 so as to provide the court with a wide range of options in respect of orders to be issued in cases of findings that the accused persons are not capable of understanding criminal proceedings so as to make proper defense, or that accused persons are by reason of mental illness or mental defect or for any other reason not criminally responsible for the offenses they are charged with, to clarify the composition of the panel provided for in Section 79 to conduct inquiries into the mental conditions of the accused persons and to provide for matters connected therewith. Therefore, the bill provides for a provision that deals with unconstitutionality of arbitrary incarceration of accused persons, and further also provides for discretion on the part of the judiciary in matters of this nature. The debates in the committee were concerned about the human element of discretionary powers conferred to the judiciary, but the committee was also conscious that it is imperative to comply with the order of the court to continue to endorse courts, constitutional democracy of South Africa, or constitutional democracy South Africa is enjoying. Nothing in the committee was actually said about the bill and its relevance to whether there is corruption or whether there is capture in South Africa. And I'm actually saying this in the sense that whenever we actually enter into debates, to some extent, then we start deviating. Instead of talking about the bill, then we keep on misleading South Africans by always bringing into the fore issues that are not important, like what I just mentioned about just flagrantly talking about corruption, talking about capture, when in actual fact here what we are actually doing is just to come up with a provision that actually allows us to be in the position to treat accused persons in a humane manner, regardless their mental ability. I thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC supports the bill.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
The DA would like an opportunity to make a declaration. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We rise in support of this report and the amendment bill. However, Deputy Speaker, the manner in which this bill was handled by the Minister and his department must be questioned. As has become the norm now, where the Constitutional Court holds parts of legislation to be unconstitutional and affords Parliament the opportunity to amend this legislation within a certain period, in this instance 24 months, such amendment bills typically is tabled less than 6 months before the cut-off date. This not only exposes Parliament to being in contempt of court, but ultimately will always lead to a situation like in this instance, that while the bill meets the bare essentials of the Constitutional Court order, any chance of producing the best possible legislation is lost. Deputy Speaker, to add insult to injury, the processing of these bills aimed at fixing unconstitutional legislation now routinely are met by monotonous lamentations by ANC members about what they believe to be the audacity of the judiciary to question Parliament and the executive. One must assume that the ANC members on the Portfolio Committee are obviously in support of the call by one Supra Zuma, the secretary of the ANC in KZN, who called for a day of mass action against what he calls frivolous judicial overreach. Deputy Speaker, whenever bills aimed at fixing unconstitutional legislation serves before the Portfolio Committee, an atmosphere thick with the smell of disdain for constitutional supremacy prevails and calls for the return of parliamentary supremacy, yes, that system that enabled and propped up apartheid, is often made by ANC committee members. It is clear, South Africans who support our Constitution can no longer support the ANC. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The UDM does support the report and the bill. But let's look at the root causes of this situation that has arisen. The Zuma administration provisions only 4% of the national fiscus for mentally ill persons. As a result of this, this class of citizens suffer unnecessarily, and then we need to amend the law. Government needs to show more concern about their plight, which in all probability is not self-inflicted. For typical, intent crimes like murder and fraud, a large number of suspects may go free if the texts indicate that they lack intellectual ability as opposed to mental illness. Poverty levels in our country are so high that it is a luxury for some of the people to even begin to talk about brain performance enhancing nutrition. We are talking about millions of people here. As a result, these people's brains operate below par, but they are not ill. We therefore can understand it that now the current government seeks to offer judicial protection to those persons by removing the term mentally defect and replacing it with intellectual disability. Such persons are a direct product of poverty that is ravaging the poor and the unemployed. Question is whether such people can be criminally responsible in the technical sense of the word. Consequently, we now have to bring the concept of balance of probabilities when dealing with typical criminal cases, not just civil matters. The economic cluster has failed, together with the social cluster of government, to make sure that people enjoy a nutrition-ready and rich diet which will enable the minds of the consumers of that food to be able to reason properly. Consequently, they fall into this unfortunate class. The end result of all the above-mentioned factors is that this department has to dispense social justice as opposed to criminal justice. Although the proposed amendments look at technical issues only, yet they have great impact on the social issues of the people. So we support the amendments, if only to protect the socially disadvantaged citizens of our country. However, caution needs to be made that we need not, as this House, have to wait until it is the jurists that tell us that we should amend the law. Why was this law allowed to go the way it is when there's 400 MPs here? Is it favoritism again? Now, let's not blame the judiciary when it keeps on correcting us. They've done a good job. And that's why we support the bill, because we are for the social good of the people. I thank you, sir.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker and the Deputy President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Commissar Floyd Shivambu. The bill before the House is as a result of Constitutional Court judgment which found that Section 77 of the Criminal Procedures Act is inconsistent and invalid when it deals with imprisonment of adults and children. Particularly, the court found that Section 77 applies particularly harshly in respect of children. A judgment was made in 2015 that Parliament was given 24 months from the date of the judgment to finalize this bill to avoid the Parliament being in contempt of court. The bill seeks to amend the Criminal Procedures Act in cases of finding that accused persons who are mentally ill, mentally defect, or for any other reason not to be criminally responsible for offenses they are charged with. An administrative matter related to appointment of a panel to conduct inquiries into the mental conditions of accused persons. The EFF agrees with this amendment because this is a directive from the Concord. Whilst the EFF support the bill, it is important to reflect on the conduct of government who continue to neglect people with mental illness. Majority of people with mental illnesses end up in criminal justice system because society and the ANC government in particular have abandoned them. Most mentally ill persons do not have access to medical services. Most of them do not have access to proper care and guidance, particularly the majority of our people. We have allowed the new Liberal government with its inhumane policies to commercialize the taking of care of people with mental illness. In Gauteng province, it is a well-known fact that the ANC government killed at least 100 mentally ill patients, deaths which could have been prevented. But we know that the ANC government killed our people, and it does not matter how vulnerable our people are, the ANC doesn't care, it continues to kill them. The ANC government has failed to provide them with soft skills for them to be functional members of society and contribute positively. Mentally ill people continue to be victims of most violent crimes, particularly women and children. And mentally ill people must not end up in criminal justice system. And when it happens, it must be a caring nation and should also do our utmost best to ensure that our criminal justice system is humane and acts sincerely, especially when an offender cannot appreciate the wrongfulness of his or her actions. It is for these reasons that the EFF support the Criminal Procedures Amendment Bill. And we want to call on all our people to look after our people with mental illnesses. We must protect them, integrate them into society, and not discriminate against them. We must love them. And in doing that,
Your term has
we will
expired.
prevent the ending up of these people in criminal justice system.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, as we've heard, the amendments that we are considering today are as a direct result of the injunction of the Constitutional Court. Halala, Constitutional Court, halala. And I know that the rules prevent us as members of Parliament or Parliament from influencing decisions of the Constitutional Court. But we hope that on Monday they would rule in favor of strengthening democracy in our country. Honourable Deputy Speaker, it has long been the accepted practice that individuals declared to be of unsound mental disposition may, in certain circumstances, be detained involuntarily. The justification for such detention has been considered necessary, not only for the treatment of the individual, but also for the protection of society at large. The problem that we currently have, and the one that this bill seeks to rectify, is the fact that there are varying degrees of mental illnesses and that it can never be a one-case-fits-all approach in respect of classifying the degree of mental illness or the danger posed to society by a person declared to be of mentally unsound mind. Up and until this legislative amendment bill, and in particular in respect of Section 77(6) of the Criminal Procedure Act, it was never required or even permitted for a court to inquire into the potential threat or danger to society posed by a mental ill accused as to what kind of treatment or hospitalization would be necessary. Expert medical witnesses were not permitted to express any medical view as to the potential threat the accused posed either to society or to themselves, or the kind of treatment that should be undertaken. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is clear that Section 76A brackets 1 and 2, because of the mandatory and predetermined nature, not only deprive the presiding judicial officer of all judicial discretion in cases such as these, but also deprive the accused of the right to a fair and individualized justice. This not only compromises the administration of justice, but also severely impinges upon the constitutional rights of the accused to a fair trial. In respect of a minor accused, there is currently a clear infringement of Constitutional Right 28(1)G, read together with the overarching provision of 28 brackets 2, which unequivocally states that, and I quote, "A child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child," close quote. Therefore, Deputy Speaker, and in full accord with the reasoning and judgment handed down by Griesel J. in our nation's apex court in this matter, the IFP supports this Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill. I thank you.
Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, honorable members of the House, to all our mothers in the House, including my own leader, Happy Mother's Day in advance. The NFP welcomes the amendment contained in the report of the Portfolio Committee. As had been noted, the amendment contained in this report are necessary in terms of the ruling of the Constitutional Court in 2015 in a case of divorce and others versus the Minister of Justice and Correctional Service and Constitutional Development and others. The NFP believes that the amendment to the Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill contained in the report must not be read in isolation, but in conjunction with the existing amendment contained in the bill. The net effect of this amendment is to soften the often harsh face of our criminal procedure and safeguard the basic fundamental human rights to dignity and liberty. Deputy Speaker, it is patently clear that it is unjust to deprive persons who are intellectually unsound and incapable of understanding our criminal procedure of their liberty under penal conditions. The issue is not about the deprivation of personal liberty, which is often necessary to protect people from harm, but the penal conditions under which such deprivation of liberty takes place is an issue. We believe that the amendments proposed here today satisfy the requirement of the Constitutional Court and also satisfy the need to balance the interest of the individual with the interest of the society. Furthermore, we are of the opinion that the amendments gives full effect to the values contained in our Bill of Rights, and accordingly, the NFP supports the recommendations in the report. I thank you.
Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the ACDP supports this bill, and we know it's a fundamental principle of our criminal justice system that an accused must be able to understand the court proceedings as well as give proper instructions to her or his or her legal representatives in order to conduct a proper defense. Now, the impugned provisions did not allow presiding officer the necessary discretion to look into the mental illness or intellectual disability of the accused persons, and this was found to be unconstitutional and resulted in, firstly, a reading-in provision by the Constitutional Court. Now, the reading-in provision is interesting because obviously we as Parliament can say, but that's our job. We pass laws. Why are you as the judiciary changing the law and giving us, Parliament, 24 months to later change it? So it's interesting what the Constitutional Court judge said. He said, I heed the caution made in an earlier decision that where there are a number of options available to cure a constitutional defect, the courts should defer to the legislature. But he said in this case, a reading in accords with the purposes of the legislation, and we agree with that. The challenge is, of course, the principles that were set out in an earlier judgment is that a range of possibilities exists where a court is able to afford interim relief to affected persons. And that is what the court did. They awarded interim relief by reading in provisions. Now, the challenge is the delay from when a court order is given to when we sit as Parliament. We are now, as the Justice Committee, under massive pressure to finalize this bill, and somewhere, Honourable Minister, somewhere we need to find a mechanism that when the court brings out an order against finding legislation unconstitutional, that we as Parliament and the Executive are immediately alerted to that, because it was almost 18 months before this was tabled before the committee. I don't know where the reason for the delays, but we from the ACDP have raised this with the Office of the Chief Justice, that surely we as Parliament or the Office of the Chief Justice alerts Parliament when a bill is found unconstitutional. Remember, the order is against the Minister, but Parliament has to rectify the defect. So that is a concern of ours, the delay that has taken place, and often we find the departments then have to approach the Constitutional Court for an extension of that clause, and surely we can do this quicker to make sure that there's enough time. Remember, this cut-off date is next month, and this process still has to go through the NCOP. So from the ACDP side, we accept the amendment, we support the amendment, and we thank the court for looking into this issue, but we believe that we can expedite the process in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honourable Bongo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, honourable members, Section 2 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Any law or conduct that is inconsistent with the Constitution itself, it's invalid. This bill is a bill that arises out of an act which was passed in 1977. It is Act 51 of 1977. When I stood here last time to debate, we have committed that as the African National Congress, we will change all other legislations that are not consistent with the Constitution. We are today standing here to fulfill exactly what we had promised the people of this country around changing all other legislations. The bill before us, it seeks to amend Section 77, Section 78, Section 79 of the Criminal Procedure Act of 1951 of 1977. It gives effect to three very important things. One, the arbitrary incarceration of mentally ill offenders. That is in terms of Section 77, subsection C, subsection 6, 1 and 2. Then Section 79 deals with the panel of assessors that must assess mentally ill people at large. Number 2, the bill deals with giving discretion, giving a wider range of options to judicial officers, magistrates, and judges in terms of assessing the mental illness of a particular offender that is before the magistrate or a judge. It is arising out of a popular judgment which is called divorce judgment, where the court declared that certain sections were just unconstitutional. Honorable members, I need to correct Honorable Matthias to say that the ANC has killed the people as demand. It is not true that the ANC has killed people as demand. That incident, we mention it as an unfortunate incident as the African National Congress. We in the African National Congress support this bill, and we understand very clearly the role of the judiciary, the role of the executive and the legislatures, and we are not confused about all these roles. We support this bill, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honourable members. Declarations having been done. And now ask the question. Are there any objections to the bill being read the second time? No objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the bill a second time.
Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill.
The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. That concludes the business of the day and the House is adjourned.